the lab recording.
It is on and recording.
All right. That's all I got.
Okay. Beer poured and ready to consume, except for Rick.
Or water.
Except for me.
All right. Let's do this.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Feel the power.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 204.
Flight 209, are you clear for takeoff? Roger. LA departure 123.9.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from my side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 1109 in the Rosen Plaza Hotel in Orlando, Florida. In this episode, sick cabin crew, fisticuffs, rocket near misses, blind pilots, bombs, and more. Oh my. So get all settled in, tray tables and seat backs in their upright and locked positions, electronic devices powered on. Flight 204 is ready for pushback. Hello and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting, as I said, in Orlando. And joining me, by the way, I'm a line captain for a major U.S. legacy carrier. And joining me in the Charlotte area is Dr. Steph, a commercial pilot and doctor.
Hello. So good to be back with you guys. I missed you guys last week. But
I missed
and
you
all
too.
of you out there in APG land as well. So good to be back tonight. Looking forward to a great show.
We are too. And also joining us, Miami Rick. He's down in Miami, and he is a first officer, a pilot for a legacy, not a legacy. Well, is it a legacy cargo outfit, international cargo airline? What would you say?
It's pretty legacy. It's been around since the mid-20s, so I'd call that legacy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
so
definitely.
It's been around for a little while. Hey, everybody. Miami Rick from Miami, as Captain Jeff said. Haven't done a lot of flying. Been doing a lot of office work and sim stuff. But, going on a trip tomorrow and going down there to Quito on a Valentine's Day flower run. So we're going to go down there, pick up a couple tons of flowers, bring them up here, and make all those beautiful gals happy.
Rick has a lot of Valentines, apparently.
I do. I had to charter a 777 and go.
Wow.
Down there. So it's an
A lot of
operation.
flowers.
Those are lucky girls. And also joining us from across the pond in the UK, we have the old pilot, the old curmudgeon, captain of a large airline over there as well, international airline, Captain Nick.
Hi there, Jeff. Hi, everybody. It's great to be back again and really enjoying this. Miami was fantastic, our last show together. That was brilliant fun. But kind of nice to get home and have some sleep. I really enjoyed the sleeping bit.
Yeah, the last couple days of that trip, I was hurting.
I'm not surprised. Luckily, I didn't get called out on my very last day of standby. So I'm off to New York day after tomorrow, back into my normal routine of polling around the world. Looking forward to that.
Excellent. By the way, I saw some of your compatriots at the Atlanta International Airport, two A330 jets and one about to taxi out. And I think the call sign was 104.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Bells?
We have two from Heathrow, one from Manchester at the moment. Don't ask me what the call signs are. I'm sorry. But
this one was
a favorite destination of ours now.
Yeah, I see you guys in and out of there a lot. And this one was 104 Lima Heavy. And by the way, every time this person made radio contact and answered any radio call, they said 104 Lima Heavy. Wasn't that one of the things you were complaining about?
Well, not
every
me,
single call,
actually, but it's a requirement of our company procedures. I wanted to find out if it's actually an FAA requirement. So
I see. Okay.
I'm learning, trying to find out if I have to say it, but our company insists on it. If you fly with a trainer and don't, you get your wrist slapped. So
I think that that's just required on your initial, call in or when you initially establish communications. But I could be wrong about that. What do you think, Rick?
well,
Yeah, it's from what I know and from what I've read and on our company, manual type stuff, it says that on the ground because of wingspan and on tower, departure, approach, and anytime your wake turbulence is going to be an issue. That's when you say heavy. That's why whenever somebody calls in at flight level 390 with the call sign heavy, I'm like, dude, really? You
It's
need
not
to
really necessary.
really?
Yeah.
You're making up for something, or what's the deal?
I have a nice Ferrari, and
well, I
It's like,
used to
dude,
get
just-
weight turbulence at 390. We get it all the time. Captain
well-
Al, by the way, does agree with me. They obviously have the same preaching in their company requirements. So we only do it because we're told to by our lovely American cousins.
Okay. It's America's fault again.
Yeah.
Is it just so for consistency, so you don't forget when you're supposed to? Maybe.
Well, no, in Canada, you are already required to do it in initial contact. So we only do it once.
Yeah.
It's only in the
I thought
States
that was the
with
rule here, but
every transmission.
oh well.
You guys should know.
Hey.
It's your damn country.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just along for the ride. I don't know anything. That's why we have Rick on the show.
Exactly right.
Hey, I had a great exchange with a gentleman representing a manufacturer of T-shirts. The company is 32 Right, and that's the number 32, and then right.com.
Like a runway.
Like the runway, 32 Right. And he said, hey, I'm trying to get some of these podcasters, these aviation podcasters on board to support my business. And here's the deal. I have a deal for your listeners. If they want to go over to my site and order some aviation-related merchandise, they can get 10% off if they use the promo code APG. And it turns out now that if it can be uppercase or lowercase, it doesn't matter. APG, the 3 letters, and you get 10% off. And you get to help support the Airline Pilot Guy show as well, depending on what you buy, anywhere from $1 to about $2 per item sold. So that helps in a small way to help out the Airline Pilot Guy show. So check out www.32right. I'm not sure if you have to put the W's in there or not for his site, 32right.com. So check it out. And we're going to be offering some kind of a fundraising shirt. Perhaps that'll be our platform for our fundraiser for Farnborough. And speaking of Farnborough, one of our listeners sent in a link to a promotional video for the show. So for this year.
Oh, that was brilliant. I love that.
This is Farnborough, 1959.
Oh,
The 20th flying display and
59.
exhibition organized by
okay. Never mind. That was
Just a
quite
couple
some
years
time.
ago.
A few years ago.
You know, it's like back when
A
you
few
were.
of you guys were alive then.
I was
think
alive.
I was there.
Barely.
I was there that year, I'm sure.
He was flying.
Captain Jeff had just checked out on the DC-3.
Hey,
No,
hey, hey.
I watched Neville Duke go supersonic in the Hunter. I'm sure of it.
No. If this was normally in the summertime, so I was probably about 1/2 year old. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Alive.
After
I was
you know,
alive. Yes.
As soon as you got checked on in the DC-3.
DC3, that was quite modern.
Anyway, so I think that was Private Pilot Rich that sent in that clip to Farnborough Air Show. How am I doing with that? Farnborough?
Yeah, it's pretty good, Jeff. I think you just
I'm
about
getting
got it
better, I
right.
think.
Farnborough.
There we go.
There we go.
Farnborough.
I like that old timey voice, you know?
Yeah,
like
like-
they talk like this, like back in 1959.
Yes, you can tell it's an old
radio
video.
voice.
I love it. I love it. Great stuff.
Why did they talk like that back then? That's
I don't know. That's interesting.
Well, I think there was one person who had an accent like that, and it was decided that was the perfect accent, and everyone copied him.
You might be right.
Mhm.
Hey, also, we have an update on the mobile apps from our app guy, Paul Whittle in the UK. He said that the Android version has been updated and is now in beta testing for version 1.1 with a few changes still to go. And he says Apple, bless them, are still dragging their feet for version 1.0, but we're down to the final issue with them. There were 3 initially. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we should have that one live on the Apple, the iOS app store for those of us who use iOS devices. So we will definitely mention that on the show when that happens. And again, Paul, if you're listening, I know it's really late over there, but we're going to have you on sometime so you can maybe when the iOS app goes live. And we're planning on meeting up with Paul and many others of you when we're there this summer in Farnborough. All right. Anything else we want to talk about before we move to the coffee fund?
We still got T-shirts on the go, Jeff. I need a new one.
The T-shirt campaign, the Acme shirts, is that what you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe we can relaunch the campaign again then. What do you think?
Oh, that'd be great. I need a couple, so it's good for me.
Okay. Maybe, you know what I'd like to do? I like long sleeve T-shirts, so maybe I can redo the whole thing so that we can have the option of doing long sleeve as well.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the 4 of us will talk about it and see what we can get going for maybe next show. We'll be able to announce that a new campaign has started. So, okay. Anything else?
Housekeeping's done, I think.
All right. Let's do this.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the Java Jive and it loves me. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. And everybody out there in APG land is singing. And we're inserting this earworm into your ears. The Coffee Fund is your way to help out financially the APG show. And we have a lot of different costs involved in doing the show. And, of course, we're raising money for our trip to Farnborough this summer. So if you'd like to help us out, head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. And there you'll find a couple different ways to help out with the Coffee Fund. Join the Coffee Fund cadre. And since the last show, we've had several use the Coffee Fund Classic method. Let's see, we have Vitor Parito de Bem, Chris McDuffie, Tedford Males, Nico Rieger, Suriel Martinez, and Henry Islarsik. I'm not sure how I did with that one, but a lot of consonants and very few vowels in that name. So Henry, Suriel, Nico, Tedford, Chris, and Vitor, thank you very much for your contributions to the fund. And we have a new patron via patreon.com since the last show. His name, James Sturton. Welcome, James. Thank you for becoming a patron. And you know what? One of the things that I promised to do for those who contribute $5 per episode and up. Yeah, believe it or not, there are people out there who are giving $5 every time we put out a show, and some $10, some $20. And I wanted to give a special thanks to all of you, and many of whom who have been doing this for quite some time. And I just thought that one of the things I said I'd do is I'd have like a scrolling credits thing at the end of the video. Well, now that we're doing Blab and it just doesn't work in too well with the workflow, I thought it will do a verbal scrolling credits for those of you who have contributed $5 or more per episode. And let's start with the top. Aaron Ruhi, Asa Armin, and you guys, if you scroll down on that intro script, you can kind of help me out and read some of these names as well, if you'd like.
Anthony
Absolutely.
Tibbs. I'll just keep going. Anthony Tibbs, Matt Donemeyer, Mike Ham, Lee Hayden, Father Jeremiah Payne, Justin Williams. Rick, your turn.
Okay, so Chris Bond, Nick Carson, Larry James, Larry Gregory, Doug Mine, I think that's how you pronounce that. If I got it wrong, I'm sorry, Doug. Andrew Espig, John Schvatal,
Good luck with that one.
and then Nick, why don't you play us out here?
The very shy Jim G, the handsome Richard Miller, the marvelous Matthew Shekirk, Adrian Nisham, he's a great guy. Dan Faulkner, love that man. You Horace.
Wisniewski, I think.
Wisniewski.
Yeah.
That sounds great. I love your name, Steve. I can't say it. And last but certainly not least, Ryan Cotton.
Absolutely. So to all of you, thank you so much. We really appreciate your monthly, actually weekly contributions to the show. So just thought it'd be kind of nice for you to hear your names. And if you want to join that elite group of folks at Patreon, you know where to go, airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. And now,
stand by for news.
and we have some breaking news just today. We learned of an A321 Dalo. Is that the way you pronounce that airline's name? Daallo, operating near Mogadishu today. An explosion ripped the fuselage open. It was going from Mogadishu, Somalia to Djibouti.
Djibouti.
Sheikh Djibouti, with 74 people on board climbing out of Mogadishu. I'm sorry. I apologize to anybody that I just offended. About 5 minutes into the flight when an explosion was heard. The crew stopped the climb and returned the aircraft to Mogadishu for a safe landing about 20 minutes after departure. A large hole was seen at the right-hand side of the fuselage above the wing. 3 occupants were taken to hospitals with injuries. The airline confirmed an explosion on board. The cause is under investigation. An oxygen bottle is being suspected. I'm not sure why they're saying that. There aren't any oxygen bottles on that airplane unless they're in the hold, right?
Yeah, exactly right. It's an oxygen generator, not an oxygen bottle.
They're oxygen generators.
Generators, chemical.
And
But I mean,
where that hole is, it would be above.
No.
I mean,
Yeah,
the cabin crew does have like portable oxygen bottles, but they're nowhere near where that hole happened. So, yeah.
No, I don't believe that.
And
that is.
there's no way a passenger would have brought an oxygen bottle on, or shouldn't have been.
Well,
medical,
shouldn't.
perhaps.
Yeah, but
possibly. Yeah.
a lot of those are just generators as well.
So.
Well, we've had
And
a
there
few
weren't-
people trying to bring them on the airplane, these personal oxygen bottles. So you've got to be careful to stop them in the hand luggage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I don't think the airplane was that high up when the explosion occurred. I don't know. It could be, I guess until they rule that out. But let's see. One passenger reported he saw the explosion occur inside the aircraft a couple of seat rows ahead of him, followed by an air rush and a sudden drop of cabin pressure. The seatbelt held him in his seat, by the way. Another good reason to always have your seatbelt fastened. He saw 2 injured people around him, one an elderly man from Finland and another one being a young Italian. The elderly man was severely burned.
Oh, wow.
The next sentence here is interesting. Local residents at Somalia, located about 21, or in Balad, Somalia, located about 21 nautical miles northeast of Mogadishu Airport, reported they saw a severely burnt body fall off an unidentified aircraft. So perhaps the person that was sitting right there next to where the fuselage ripped open maybe got sucked out, which would be horrible.
That's terrible. Terrible. Wow.
Well, there's certainly some signs on the fuselage there that, show that.
Now, looking at the extent of that damage, I'm wondering if that would put this aircraft out of commission for good, or is that something that may be repairable?
I don't know.
I don't know, because basically aircraft, when you pressurize and depressurize an aircraft, when you fly a cycle, takeoff, cruise, and a landing, basically the fuselage expands and contracts like a balloon as you pressurize and depressurize the aircraft, and any weak spot up along the fuselage, and obviously that is a weak spot. I don't know if a repair would be able to support the types of stresses that years of service might incur in a fuselage. So I don't know. Interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to this aircraft.
Well, I'm pretty sure
Carl
they
says
could an entire section of fuselage but whether they'd be willing to go to that expense, Rick, I don't know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Carl Stebbing says the aircraft is 19.1 years old.
Ooh.
So
perhaps not.
Maybe they'll just...
Maybe not worth it.
Yeah.
But it's hung together very well, considering. I realized it wasn't at full pressure, wasn't probably at altitude. It was still in the climb, but nice to see that the hole didn't propagate down the fuselage. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, right. Structurally, that's how these aircraft are built. I guess the ribs and the stringers, and basically they stop any type of fatigue or stress fracture. With the way that the aircraft is put together. So basically any type of break and structural break is going to be stopped by a portion of the structure that's there to stop it. And so if it wasn't built that way, then obviously the hole would have been a lot bigger. So, but then again, it's going to be interesting to see whether this aircraft being so old is going to be economically viable to even, fix. So.
Did you guys watch the video of the someone filmed from inside the cabin afterwards?
Yes. Yeah, with the oxygen masks hanging out and the
Yeah.
rushing sound. Yeah. We'll have a link to all that, the Aviation Herald article in the show notes. Did you hear about this American Airlines Flight 109 from London Heathrow to Los Angeles? This was last week, I believe. It turned around and returned to London Heathrow after several of the cabin crew and some passengers were taken ill. Reported a burning smell on board. Dr. Barbara Persons was a passenger on the flight and offered to help after cabin crew and fellow flyers reported feeling dizzy. One of the flight attendants, I think, collapsed and passed out just outside of the business class lavatory. And then I guess there were a couple others that passed out as well. And so they returned to London Heathrow, and I guess they checked all their bags and such. And as far as I know, they haven't determined the cause of this event.
No.
What was the aircraft type?
Interesting. It was like it was
Pardon?
a
777.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Have you guys suffered from any oil coming into the cabin, Rick, on those aircraft?
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. No, that's not an issue for us.
Toxic error syndrome?
Yeah. Well, we on the 340s, we've had it. Not anymore, but until they modified the engines, it was, I won't say it's common, but it happened occasionally, yeah.
On the Dash 300s or the 600s?
Both.
Oh, really? Okay. Wow.
and causes symptoms like that?
No. Just a smell. But of course, you're not quite sure what it's doing to you. That stuff, it can be pretty toxic. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the cause of that was, if they can ever determine it.
Mm.
So
It will. Let's see. Continuing with cabin crew, you may have heard about this. Just a few days ago, a Delta Airlines flight was forced to make an unscheduled landing after two female flight attendants had a punch-up at 37,000 feet in the air. Two staff members aboard Flight 2598 from Los Angeles to Minneapolis had disagreements over work issues, eventually leading to the two having a fist fight in the cabin. Then a third cabin flight attendant decided to try to break it up, but ended getting punched herself at which point she informed the captain of what was happening. The captain told passengers he was diverting the plane to Salt Lake City as he wanted to hear from his flight attendants. To the aviation.
We're going to have some words.
We're going to talk. Yeah, we'll talk. Passengers were forced to sit on board the plane for 80 minutes before continuing their flight once again without the quarreling staff members. The quote from the airline is, "Some of our team members did not display their best behavior." No kidding. Yeah. So I would imagine that we probably have a couple openings at Delta Airlines for flight attendants.
At least 2 openings.
At least, yeah. So anyway, that was interesting, I thought. Let's see. Rick, did you hear about this? This is a Boeing. You're a Boeing man. British Airways 747-400. I know that he did because I saw some communication, some chatting about this on Twitter, actually. Let's see, was performing flight 295 from London Heathrow to Chicago O'Hare. And they were at flight level 330, about 160 nautical miles south of Keflavik, Iceland, when the crew decided to return to London's Heathrow Airport due to a technical problem. On approach to Heathrow, the crew dumped fuel, lowered the gear very early, subsequently reported an unsafe gear indication for both main gear. Only nose and body gear had extended. The aircraft positioned for a 15 nautical mile final to Heathrow's runway 27 right and landed safely on nose and body gear only and stopped on the runway about 20 minutes after reporting the unsafe gear.
Yeah, I saw this. And you see, what's interesting to me here is as the 747 works a little bit different than the 777 and 75 and 767s because obviously the 74 is a 4-engine aircraft. And as such, each one of the 4 hydraulic systems is run by each one of the 4 engines. In aircraft that only have 2 engines, basically the left hydraulic system is going to be run by the left engine. The right hydraulic system is going to be run by the right engine. And then the center hydraulic system, which basically takes the bulk of the flight controls, the landing gear, I guess the highest load demanded upon the hydraulic system is taken up by the center system. And the center system is usually run by 2 sets of electrical pumps and 2 sets of pneumatic demand pumps. So in an aircraft like the 74, like as I said, where you have 4 engines, each engine running a hydraulic system, the landing gear system works a little bit different. So on a 74, if you were to have a wing gear issue not extending like this case here, then that would be related to the number 4 hydraulic system, which is run by the number 4 engine. So that might be an issue. There might be an issue with the number 4 hydraulic system. Now, why did the landing gear did not extend? As we know, and as we've talked about several times in the podcast, there are obviously fail saves and backup systems to every major system on board. The landing gear, obviously, being such an important part of the of an aircraft system, needs to have several fail saves, and so. The failsafe that we have, it's obviously called the external landing gear, the alternate landing gear extension. The way it works is all you're really doing is you are releasing the uplocks, the gear uplocks electrically, because when you retract the landing gear is obviously actuated into the up position hydraulically, and then after a while, either automatically or manually, depending on the type of aircraft that you fly, the system that actuates that landing gear is going to basically depressurize, and now the gear is going to be held up by just basically uplocks. There's no more hydraulic pressure. And the reason behind that is so that if you do have a failure and you do release the uplocks electrically, then the gear is able to free fall. And that's basically what the alternate gear extension is. The gear free falls into the airstream, and the way that it free falls into the airstream is what locks it down aerodynamically, right? And so if the gear was not able to come down, then you have one of 2 issues, one of 2 possible outcomes here. The first one is that you have some sort of electrical issue with the system that takes care of those uplocks, like the case with that Polish 767 that was not able to extend the gear after it had a central hydraulic failure, basically the system that takes care of the landing gear on a 767. The other thing could be what happened to a Virgin Atlantic 747 a couple of months ago. where one of the wing gear legs was not able to extend. And this was after the aircraft had been through maintenance and something had been installed wrong. And interestingly enough, this aircraft had also just been in maintenance. So maybe there's something going on there. I don't know. The interesting thing is that the crew was able to bring the aircraft back, and I would have done the same. I would have, basically brought the aircraft back to the base, the longest runway available. Basically, if I took off from London, I would have returned to London. I have all my maintenance support there, all my airline support there. And when I had my hydraulic failure, because I've had this thing happen to me, I basically flew for about, a third of the flight, 3 hours, and then got on with the airline the entire time, and they were, they're basically following us along and basically following our progress and asking us, how we were doing and what our options were and what our weight was, and we were talking to them, asking them about, what the weather conditions were and where would they want the aircraft, because when it gets to that type of event, it really is not about. Yes, the captain makes the final decision, but you really want to share that responsibility with as many people as possible. And we've talked about this, sharing that burden. And so we flew around for 3 hours. We got the aircraft down to a weight where it was manageable. The runway we took off from was not particularly a long runway, even though it was at sea level. And so we dumped a bunch of fuel, came back down, extended the gear manually, and we landed. So these guys did exactly the same thing. They were able to extend the body gear. Some gear is better than no gear. They got the body gear down, came back down, and landed it with no problem. So kudos to them.
I'm wondering if the guy who was working for Virgin is now working for BA.
Yeah, there was talk about that in the chat room, and it was like around a year ago that they had that problem. So I would imagine the body gear probably is built to withstand more weight than the wing, but I'm not sure.
Well, the aircraft. I'm sorry, Steffi. Just one last thing. Yep. The aircraft is certified to take off to land with nose gear and body gear only, or nose gear and wing gear only. It can go either way. So it's built that way. And the FAR Part 25 requirements of the sync rate at max landing weight and sync rate at max takeoff weight apply for both only body gear and only wing gear, or obviously all four of them as well. But so the aircraft, it can more than take it. Absolutely.
But then weight and balance on the ground, they had talked about how the passengers had to offload. I don't know if you can go into that a little bit.
Yep. So how did that go? What happened there?
Well, they said they had the passengers disembark slowly and aft cabin first so that the aircraft didn't tip backwards, basically. So I guess is that a concern with you? Never. We've never seen pictures of that.
No. Well, there was an accident many years ago on when Pan Am first got their 747s, and it was I forget what airport it was, and I'm sure somebody in the chat room there is going to be able to set us straight here. But this aircraft came back in and landed short of the runway, and you took out some landing gear. I believe it was the body gear or the wing gear, I forget, but it took out a set of landing gear. And basically the aircraft rolled out on the remaining gear, and then as they evacuated the aircraft, it happened. What Steph said. That's exactly what happened. The aircraft went. The CG went out of limits, and the aircraft tipped back. And but these aircraft are so overbuilt. They're so amazingly over-engineered, and they can take anything.
Very interesting. Well, it looks like the crew did a nice job. Yeah, despite the fact that they weren't Acme red.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Moving on with some more of our news. And speaking of Boeing, the little brother of the 747, the 737, the 737 MAX, to be exact, had its first flight this past week, and everything, I guess, went well. So our good friend Nick Acosta in Miami sent us the link to this article regarding the successful first flight of the 737 MAX.
Yeah, good stuff. I saw the. Did you guys get a chance to look at the flight deck layout of the new 737?
Yeah,
MAX?
Huge.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice
screens, nice, very 787 like. But I thought it was interesting how I guess the throttle quadrant and I guess the old timey trim wheels and the flap handles and that center pedestal there remains very 737 classic style. I mean it's kind of a hybrid there. They were saying that they wanted to keep the 737 as close to the NGs as possible, so it could be a common type, which seems to be a very common thing to do nowadays. Try to keep the types as close to each other to bring training costs down, which makes a lot of sense.
So basically, everything behind those big screens is just as it was when they built the first one. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I was going to say, it's just like remodeling your old living room or something. The structure is the same, but then you put the big flat panel TV up there.
Exactly right. That's it.
Some yokel.
It looks very nice.
Some yokel in the chat room, Big Al, says something about overhead panel is 50s tech.
Yes, exactly.
There's always
that is very true, Captain Al. Overhead panels is 50s tech.
Yeah. Okay. Good to see you, man. All right. Let's move on. Let's talk about the beloved Airbus, Captain Al, Captain Nick. They had a near miss just like yesterday, I think. Or no, actually, it occurred August 18th, 2015. They said that a rocket-shaped object the size of two 2-liter fizzy drink bottles passed very close to a passenger aircraft at about 1,500 feet. It was a A321. And the pilot estimated the object passed 100 feet, 30 meters from his jet. And the pilot saw the object pass the jet's starboard, I call it the right side, after departing the Birmingham airport last August. And anyway, so what do you think was going on there? Did somebody just make some kind of a homemade rocket with Diet Coke and what are those things called?
The fizz drink
Mentos.
Bottle rocket.
Mentos.
Oh, Mentos.
Yes, Mentos. No, I don't know. I thought it was going to get to 1,500 feet, though. Good Lord, that's pretty impressive.
No, I don't think so. It's very impressive.
But, you can buy the inverted commas toy rockets that will go that altitude easily. And if it has what looks like two sizable boosters on the side of it, it looks like someone got a nice Christmas present and decided to set it off in the flight path of the airport. So not a very bright thing to do.
That is it's always a good thing to do, I think.
If you really want to outdo yourself, just
let's go ahead.
I was going to say, if you really want to outdo yourself, film yourself doing that with a drone while holding a laser.
No, that would be perfect.
And then broadcast or post a video of it and tell us your GPS location. So
there you go.
And
brilliant.
Broadcast it on your handheld VHF radio in a bathtub.
He'll probably say he was trying to do the pilot a favor by shooting down a drone that was hovering around at the same time.
It was all in interest of public safety.
Okay. And let's see. We're not quite. How long have we been going here? I need to do this because I'm not sure we're going to be.
We're going green. We're going green. We're going to take care of the earth. We're going green.
I'm wearing a green shirt.
So
that's why I'm going to say it.
I noticed, and I'm green with envy.
Yes, you are. Okay.
Well, I'm green. I'm drinking too much beer.
I got nothing.
Okay. Thank you. And regarding the bottle rocket or the rocket thing,
I have very little patience for stupidity.
Okay. And let's continue with our last news item. A blind RAF Hawk pilot lands safely thanks to the help of his wingman. Rick, you want to talk about this one?
So I saw this and I immediately thought of Captain Nick, not because of the blind pilot, but because of the because of the RAF Hawk. Yeah, that's the second thing I thought about. It was just, I read through this and it says, let's read about it a little bit. It says basically that on January 28th, so, a couple of days ago, an unnamed Royal Air Force Hawk pilot lost his sight due to an eye infection. and basically while in a routine training sortie, and was able to make a safe landing thanks to the help received from another pilot who flew alongside his plane to talk him down. And so my question, and really the reason why I wanted to talk about this was because, Captain Nick, being a very accomplished RAF pilot, and me being a strictly civilian pilot, I've never, and I know Captain Jeff has done this as well, but not to the extent that Captain Nick has. Talk about what is involved in what involves formation flying, the kind of communication, the kind of things you guys say to each other, how you form behind another aircraft, and if something like this happens, how you're able to talk a colleague down safely, and how can that person land the aircraft basically blindly. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about here. And I thought it was
very interesting question, and I wish I knew a little bit more about it, because if the guy had a reasonable amount of vision, then the only thing that his wingman could really help him with was checking his airspeed and making sure he's reasonably well lined up with the runway. There was a similar case quite a while ago where a Hawk pilot took a bird through the cockpit, and it was pretty big. A large fat duck or a goose. Anyway, it hit him in the face and partially blinded him. He actually lost his eye in the end. And he formatted on another aircraft, which was easier for him to do. And the other guy just landed him, basically. So he could see out of one eye, and he used that one eye to observe the other aircraft and formate on him. This sounds like the guy had a little bit of vision, so he was going to have a go at landing himself, and the other guy formatted on him. So that actually makes it quite difficult, because when you're leading a pair, you've got to bear in the mind that your maneuvers have got to be gentle. You've got to never use full power, otherwise you leave the guy behind, or might do, etc. And it's never quite as easy. But we teach our pilots to formate and do formation takeoffs and landings from a very early stage in their careers. And it's actually, once you get used to it and the lag that's in the engine, it's relatively simple. When you join, you always do so from obviously behind, a little bit outside, and always below. You've always got to leave yourself a safe lane to escape in case you underestimate your amount of closure and you find you can't stop in time. So you always have to be able to shoot through, and so you never join on the same plane as the other pilot. But basically you close up and you call the lead aircraft calls his speed. You give yourself about 20 knots of closure when you're coming close, and then just back that off. And once you get close, then the detail of the aircraft you're trying to formate on comes out, and you can estimate your distance and closure rate much easier. And then it's a matter of just moving in and picking up the lineup cues. You have one usually for fore and aft, and one for lateral cues, and when you line both them up, you're in the correct position. So then it's just a matter of holding that position with little nudges of power, and obviously being easy on the stick, not to wobble too much. And the guy who's leading you has to also be relatively gentle, so he doesn't do anything to surprise you. So it sounds like this guy formatted on the chap that had lost his sight, and I'd be interested to know what Steph thinks. You could get an eye infection that takes away your sight in what would be an hour and a half mission. I don't know. And basically just made sure he was probably at the right speed and lined up on the center line. And once the guy's on the runway, then I suspect he either went round or dropped back and made sure he kind of stayed there. As regards commands, there are simple RT commands you use, and it's always given an execute order. So you'd say undercarriage, go would be putting the gear down, or if it was up, and it the other way around if the gear's down. Flaps, go, all this kind of stuff. You don't usually call power settings. You can use hand signals as well, but of course, if the guy's partially lost his sight, there's not much point trying to do those. So you can do it in silent mode as well. But I suspect they were chatting to each other quite a lot and making sure that they were safe. And this was probably a bit of an amalgamation of what would be a normal pairs landing and a lot more chat to the chap who had the problem.
And you flew this very aircraft, the Hawk. You were an instructor on this aircraft, right? What's the flight characteristics of this aircraft? Is it easy to fly? Is it responsive? How does it respond as an aircraft?
It was a very smooth airplane to fly. Yep, light, responsive, easy to control. Very good, gave very good roll rate. It pitches very nicely. Got very detectable buffet levels when you're coming up to CL max. The engine is powerful. It's the Ardeur, same as in the Jaguar, but only one and non-reheated. So quite a powerful engine for the weight of aircraft. And from the instructor's point of view, very nice sitting position. The instrumentation was basic but good. In the this is a Hawk 100, I think, so that's improved, and they might even have a 100 Squadron. My apologies. So it would have been the basic trainers. So yeah, it was still very easy airplane to fly. Our students got used to it very quickly. Sent them solo after only 5 or 6 sorties usually.
And then just going back to the what could have caused that to happen so rapidly in terms of the loss of sight. I was actually looking back through a couple of different articles to see if I could find any more information, because just off the top of my head, and I'll have to do a little looking into it, I can't think of a specific infection that would worsen so quickly as to degrade sight that much. Certainly if you have any type of illness, infection, that's that first thing on that I'm safe checklist that I know we've talked about before. I know Rick's brought it up before, but if you have any inkling that you're not going to be well enough to fly, that's probably enough that you should sit that one out. Someone brought up in the chat room, could it have been an allergic reaction? I think that's probably a more likely scenario, because if there was something going on and he was allergic to something, you could get a significant amount of swelling quickly enough to cause significant impairments in visual field or sight that could have caused this. So I'm not sure. It'll be interesting to see if they ever say what it was. I'd be interested to know. So
you'll be very lucky to get out of them, Steph.
Yeah, they're not going to say it, but
like as Captain Nick said, I wish that there was a little bit more information in this article regarding exactly what happened here and who actually was the lead and who was the wingman. I can see both scenarios, actually. The scenario that Captain Nick was saying, kind of flying back on him and telling him, to slow down and configure and turn left, turn right, almost giving like no gyro vectors if necessary. Mm-hmm. But then on the other hand, I think that if you had enough vision with the eye that was not so badly affected, there might be enough that you could keep the other airplane in sight and fly the wingman on the lead, and then all the way down to touchdown. And we practiced in pilot instructor training the same thing, takeoffs and landings in formation, fingertip formation. I don't know. I wish that I knew a little bit more about it.
No, but nice to see it. The guys were skilled enough to be able to get it back without having to eject. That would have been a waste of an airplane. And of course, if there was a real danger that they weren't going to make it back safely, it would of course been the best option. But not very nice to have to eject if you can't see very much. That's a bit of a nightmare.
Don't see an ejection doesn't sound very good at all to me.
No.
Okay. Well, there you have it. That is what we had lined up for our news today. And of course, now is the best part of the show. Your feedback.
Captain, incoming message.
Let's start with Big Ron over there in the UK. He shared this on Twitter, and it was an airlive.net video watching the moment passengers realize that the plane is flying with the door open. Problem is the video, when I looked at it anyway, and was gone. Somebody pulled it. I just wanted to mention that I just wanted to acknowledge that Big Ron did send it, and unfortunately, we couldn't really enjoy that. If anybody has the video, I'm not sure exactly what the incident was, but if you have the video of the moment that the passengers realized that the plane is flying with the door open, send it to us, and then we'll talk about it some more. Natasha. Is it not? Let's see, Natasha or Natasha?
I want to say Natasha.
Natasha. I would. So it's like a soft CH.
Mm-hmm.
Natasha.
Like an SH.
Yeah. She says, I'm a beginner pilot from Brazil and would like to thank you for your podcasts and insights. It really helps us improve our English skills and overall knowledge. I also teach pilots and prepare them to get ready for the ICAO test, and it would be very interesting to have some extra material to work with. I love the APG 043 Tamtastic, and I tell all my students about it and how important it is to learn English and to use the standard phraseology. And by the way, the lady's voice was the co-pilot and the male's voice was the captain, and they didn't understand the word sideways, neither, or out of track. A friend of mine, also an A330 captain, told me they should have recycled the BSCU line, and it would have fixed the problem because once the main landing gear touches the ground, it automatically realigns the nose landing gear. So I would like to ask you to create a podcast about the ICAO English test and give pilots all over the world, especially non-English speaking pilots, an overview and a brief explanation about it. And an exclamation if you want. I appreciate your help and wish you very happy and safe flights. Kind regards, Natasha Castillo. Thank you, Natasha. Always good to hear from people all around the world, and especially females as well. So thanks for writing to us. And Rick, I think he's prepared something regarding your question about the ICAO proficiency requirements.
Yeah, so thanks, Natasha, for that great piece of feedback. And we did kind of touch on this last episode, if I'm not mistaken. We talked about, the different levels of English proficiency as set forth by ICAO, and the kind of level you need to be at. Sorry about ending that sentence with a preposition there. To be able to operate. To be able to operate. You can do that now. Yeah, I know. I guess it's. Oops. Try again. So basically, the level you need to be able to speak English to enter the United States and go into countries where English is the language that is used for RT for radio transmissions. And I went back and I looked at what the requirements are, and we did mention that you need to have at least a level 4, which is operational. And once you score a level 4, you need to go back and just like you would a simulator check ride or your medical certificate, you need to go back and take this test and get reevaluated every 3 years to make sure that you don't lose that proficiency. If you score a level 5, then your, recurrent period is extended. And then if you score a level 6, which is expert, that basically means that you are a native speaker and you don't ever need to take that test again. And there are several things that the authorities are going to look for as far as determining what level you fall under, and they're going to be looking at pronunciation, at your sentence structure, at your vocabulary, at your fluency, at your comprehension, and your interaction. So basically, the way you take this test, and I've taken this test twice. Once for my Ecuadorian ATP when I flew out of Ecuador, and once for my Chilean license, which is the license that I'm using now. Because just like the American licenses, on your license, you have your English, your ICAO English level on there. And just like your simulator check ride, your medical exam, just like those two have an expiration date, your English level, your ICAO English level, if you have a 4 or a 5, that also has an expiration date. And whichever date is, I guess, closest to the actual date becomes your license's expiration date. And so when you take this exam, it's basically taken in 2 parts. The first part is you basically sit in front of a computer, and you're going to put a pair of headsets on, just like you would up in the flight deck, and you are going to listen to a recording of basic ATC communications. And you're going to respond to those transmissions, and you're going to be answering to an evaluator. The evaluator is going to be sitting in another cubicle somewhere, listening in on your answers and your responses and grading you. So that's one part of it. And then the other part of it is you will have just a basic conversation with this examiner, and it's basically just a regular conversation. You know, you can pick the subject, obviously going to be aviation related. And I'm sorry, and I do believe there's also a written part. I took this thing so long ago, I don't even remember. But there's basically they're looking for, as I said, all these little factors here to make sure that you're able to communicate with ATC, and then they're able to understand you, and you're able to understand them as well. Because in the end, that really is all you have when you are in an ATC type environment. So. Very, very interesting stuff. And, it's something that pilots are in the States and countries where English is the first language, something that, you guys and gals are not really exposed to. But, it's interesting stuff.
I think this is something that Miami Rick should make a project. He should start his own podcast, the ICAO English Proficiency Podcast.
Yeah, step one, and every sentence with a preposition.
No, that was great. It's always, we have heard this comment over and over again several times over the years that a lot of people from countries that English is not their native language, they like to listen to the show and listen to us speak English, and it really helps them with their English skills. Unfortunately, it's probably not the best benchmark to use. No. Unless that's why we have Captain Nick. That's why we brought in Captain Nick with the Queen's English.
Go find a professional. Can I just make a point about? She said a friend of mine, also an A330 captain, told me they should have recycled the BSCU because it would have fixed the problem. No, no, the BSCU may not be recycled in flight.
What is that?
Yeah, BSCU.
BSCU is the brake steering control unit. So
sounds important.
It really, it turns the main brake system off and turns off the nozzle steering if you turn it off. So it's just that I've got my QRH here, and BSCU reset in flight not authorized.
Wow. Now, is this something that? Because I've always wondered in the Airbuses, when you push back, does the mechanic disconnect your does he insert the steering bypass down at outside ground level, or is it something you disconnect it from the flight deck, or
it's a little lever on the nose wheel, and he brings the lever back, pops a pin in. That brings up a memo on the flight deck, so we can confirm that the steering bypass is engaged, and then that frees it up. But there was a problem with early Airbus BSUs, bypass switches, and we had a few. The switch failed during pushback, and the hydraulic system pressurized. Now, if you think about it, then that with a tug trying to turn it one way, and the hydraulic system now active trying to keep it in the middle, something broke. So that for a while we used to have to. I'm trying to remember what we did. We weren't allowed to start engines until we'd completed pushback, just in case the green system came online and that happened. So you had to complete. But now they've modified that problem away, so we can now start engines during push.
Do you know how? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Captain Jeff.
I was going to say, do you know how we determine whether or not the nose steering bypass pin has been properly positioned on the airplane that I fly?
There's a little hole in the floor you look through.
No, when you start taxiing and you can't steer the airplane, then you know, I think something is wrong here.
Excellent. Big Al.
That's interesting, though.
Must be a man with a flag on the airplane.
When I was a new captain on this airplane, we're supposed to taxi around with the electronic hydraulic pumps on to make sure that you have sufficient, especially if you're taxiing around with only one engine, sufficient hydraulic pressure to power things like nose wheel steering. And it was in fact in here in Orlando, and we were pulling off the ramp, and I was trying to make this pretty sharp turn, and I was attempting to do so, and the airplane was not turning at all. And I quickly looked down at the hydraulic pumps, the electronic pump switches, and I said, "Would you turn those on for me, please?" And I almost went into one of those little areas with the little, water in between the taxiways, where all the alligators live and stuff. It's like, yikes! Please,
that would not have been good.
No,
no. See, for us, we don't have a. I mean, the system works the same way as in Captain Nick's Airbus, but we don't get a message up in the flight deck letting us know that the steering system has been bypassed. And for those of you guys and gals who don't know what we're talking about, basically on these bigger, big airplanes, just basically everything that moves any type of control surface or any type of steering system, it's got to be actuated hydraulically, because these things are so big and so heavy that you would not be able to move them with just basic human strength, or even mechanical advantage using just human strength. So you need to employ hydraulics, and a lot of times these aircraft have different hydraulic systems that service different parts of the steering systems or braking systems, like we talked about in the 747 thing, the gear that didn't come out. And so when you start to push back, you need to make sure that the system that powers your nose wheel, which it steers that nose wheel around, is bypassed, because if it's not, then the tug driver is not going to be able to move your nose wheel around and push you back and set you up in a way, to allow you to take to begin your taxi procedure. And so basically that's what happens there. That's why it's very important as well that when you finally finish, when the pushback is finally finished and the steering bypass is reconnected, the mechanic walk off to the side of the flight deck, either the left-hand side or the right-hand side, and shows you that pin, the gear pin and the steering bypass pin, to let you know and to confirm visually that the pin has been removed. And yes, your hydraulic steering system has been restored to its normal operation, normal mode, and you'll be able to retract your landing gear once it comes time to do so. And only when the tow bar has been disconnected or the super tug has been removed from the airplane, at least that's procedure at my airline, is when you're able to do the rudder control check. And the reason why you have to wait for that is because the rudder pedals are connected to the nose landing gear, and you have 7 degrees of nose wheel travel with only the rudder pedals. And the way you test that is you hold the steering tiller, because if you don't hold the steering tiller, then the nose wheel is going to turn as you push the rudder pedals, and then the tires are going to scrub. If you happen to have the tow bar connected and you don't hold the steering tiller while you do your rudder check, then you're going to have that tow bar swinging around, and you could really hurt somebody. So tow bar disconnected, hold the tiller, and then finally you do the rudder check, and then you go on your way.
Yeah, there have been many people injured and tow bars broken because of, errors involving the bypass pin not being pulled or whatever.
And these tow bars have a weak spot. It's called the fuse pin, and which is basically a weak spot that is built into the tow bar, which is going to break. It should break before any landing gear component would break, and that's kind of a fail safe there, so that you don't break the airplane and you break the tow bar before you break the airplane. But even so, you got to be careful.
Gotta be careful.
Let's go out for a ride into the countryside for a little rendezvous made for two. We'll take our own sweet time, enjoy the sweet sunshine on this sparkling sunny day made for two.
That is Robin Stein, Made for Two. I love her singing. Okay, let's move on with Frank from Germany. It's Captain Frank from Germany writing to you. First of all, big applause for reaching the magic 200 with your show. As I'm following your show since summer of 2015, I slowly get a feeling of all the effort and hard work which is needed to run such a fantastic program. Thank you very much, Frank, for your congratulations. A few facts about myself. I'm a pilot with a major German airline employed since nearly 25 years. I started right at the bottom as a mechanic A&P and did my pilot training next to the job. 21 years ago, I jumped straight into the cockpit of the 737. And presently, I'm doing my conversion training for the A320. That is more or less after passing the first half of my carrier. Timing couldn't be better. My main topic today is that I must tell you that I'm also a victim of the failure of the Acme t-shirts. Okay, so I'm hoping that everybody that had problems with receiving the wrong shirt was able to resolve that. I think I saw Matty Fab today. Looks like he finally got his proper shirt, and he had the bonus of keeping that wonderful Great White North Christmas or whatever that thing was called.
Great White Christmas.
Yeah.
Great White Shark.
Yeah.
Christmas.
Sorry about that. So again, if you're still having trouble resolving that situation, there was a handful of you that had issues with that. Please drop us a note and I'll try to contact Teespring again. But apparently the contractor that they used this time did something wrong. So many of you received the wrong shirts, and I do apologize for that. But anyway, sorry about that, Captain. Hopefully by now, he sent this on the 12th of January. So hopefully Captain Frank now is wearing his Acme, APG Acme Airlines shirt proudly. And thanks so much for introducing yourself and becoming part of our community. Yes, sir. What am I missing?
You're laughing, Rick?
Right. No, I'm just laughing at what they're just talking, in the chat room. These live shows and looking at the chat room is it's interesting. Now I know.
I try not to look at what they're saying. In fact, I didn't realize that Steph had actually dropped off the call until somebody sent me a message, and then it kind of.
I was just sitting here watching, waiting. That's all right.
I'm sorry, because I try not to look at what's going on in this blab because it's very distracting.
Very.
I kind of want one of the I'm dreaming of a great white Christmas.
Well, there are a lot of people in the APG community that have them stuff.
You know what? If you order one, you might get an APG shirt.
I might get an APG shirt. Yeah,
exactly. I'm wondering if that happened. I bet that did. They're going, what is this?
Maybe.
What's Acme? What the?
Meanwhile, in a parallel universe.
I know.
Yes. Hey, CJ, the C-130 pilot, sent this. He said, "Dear Wikipedia, and the other guy and the lovely doctor, I have no counter argument that mounting a huge bubble on top of an airliner," we were talking about that company that has the seats and the protruding canopy in the back of the airplane, etc. He says, so you can get a seat with the best view, will add quite a bit of parasitic drag to the airplane. But it may be argued that an addition of a few wrinkles from rivets or plates added here and there may actually benefit the aircraft's performance. And then he has a link to an article in the Capital Gazette regarding wings and rivets and plates and deformities of wings, etc. And we'll put that in the show notes. And then he said, hey, yet another reason that airliner wings need not be perfectly smooth. He put a link to an article from the Christian Science Monitor regarding this very cool discovery. There's a desert beetle, the Namib? How would you pronounce that? Namib? Hello?
Either. I don't know.
Somebody here?
Hello?
Yeah. Okay. We're all just considering as well. We don't know.
Anyway, this beetle in the deserts of Africa helped scientists unlock the key to preventing or slowing frost. And it's, I guess, a team of scientists with the Virginia Polytechnic Institute, or Virginia Tech, have discovered a method for controlling and preventing frost. The method works around the combination of a specific pattern overlaid on top of a water-resistant surface. The team believes that by scaling up tests, the method would be conducive for use on large commercial objects like airplanes. The inspiration for the effective frost prevention method came from an insect that lives in an environment where frost is really a problem. And they're talking again about this Namib desert beetle. And it has these bumps that are in a certain pattern. And then I guess the actual smooth surface of the shell, in combination of those two things, allows water droplets to form and then to run to its mouth. And so they did some tests with a silicon wafer and using a process known as photolithography. And the chemical pattern attracts the water droplets while the surface of the material repels it. The result keeps water droplets separated and running, which slows or entirely prevents frost from growing. Now, if you want a scientific version of all this, basically what we're talking about are little bumps that kind of keep frost and from forming on surfaces. But if you're a scientist, listen up. Here we demonstrate the chemical patterns can be used to tune the spatial distribution of supercooled condensation and subsequently control the geometry and speed of interdroplet frost growth. For the first time, interdroplet ice bridging could be completely halted by utilizing sufficiently sparse hydrophilic patterns and by quickly triggering a freezing event near the pattern condensation.
No, that was Rickettsworthy.
You should have.
It really was.
You should have read that.
For whoever wrote that.
So the only person actually that listening to my voice right now that understands that is probably Rick.
And my Rick.
Actually, I can follow this one.
Well, yeah, you're a scientist. You're a doctor. Okay.
Doctor.
Anyway, it's not the first time that. Yes, sir.
It'd be pretty useful on the 340. We get a lot of frost at the end of a trip when the cold fuel is sitting at the bottom of the tanks, particularly around where the booster pumps are, and of course they're quite firmly attached to the bottom of the wing. So we get large areas of frost, even in warm destinations, and it's a problem if you've got a quick turn. You've obviously got to try and either wait for the damn stuff to melt, get some warmish fuel in there, circulate that around. That will help. But quite often we're having to take a squad of de-icing just to get rid of some large patches of frost. And that is an annoying frustration for us.
That's interesting because for us, we sometimes do sectors that are over 12 hours long, and then we have to do another 2-hour long sector. So I'll go downstairs and I'll do the walk around and I'll look at the that layer of frost on the underside of the wing there. But it never gets to be really an issue. It's very, very thin. And I know there is a limit to how deep that layer can be, but I had no idea that was an issue on the 340. Yeah.
Yep. Airbus prevent us from getting airborne with frost on the wings, and we've tried to put a case that there are small areas that might be acceptable. They could perhaps paint lines saying if the frost is within these lines, it wouldn't be too dangerous. Wouldn't affect your aerodynamic performance too much, but they've refused to do that. So no, we've got to make sure we've got a clean wing. Just sometimes you've got to sit and wait for it to melt.
Yeah, and the reason why, for you guys and gals who don't really understand, the reason why you would get frost on the underside of the wing after a really long flight is because, as you all know, big airliners and just about every airplane out there carry their fuel inside the wings, and when you are done flying a very, very long sector at very, very high altitudes where it's very, very cold, that fuel is going to get very cold as well. And so when you go into warmer, more humid air, then that air is going to condense and freeze onto that cold surface and basically stay there. And that's why you would get that kind of frost on the underside there. And as Captain Nick says, apparently on his aircraft, you're not allowed to have any frost at all. It's not the case with my aircraft. You are allowed to have a certain bit. I forget exactly how thick that layer is, but you're allowed to have
what?
I think it's 3 millimeters, but don't quote me on that. I don't remember exactly.
Wow.
But it's such a non-issue that I don't even know the numbers. So
I'm surprised.
You have to So you don't specifically measure it, though. You just
go
at it.
Take a little over.
Yeah.
We have it's up to 1/8 of an inch for us on the underside of the wing. On my airplane, though, however, on the 88 anyway, we have an issue with the frost forming and ice forming on the upper wing surface where the fuel is located, and so we have actually McDonnell Douglas installed heater blankets to prevent that from forming. So it's a little bit of an engineering problem they had early on with the airplane.
And the way you get those started is you get a couple of wooden logs. You go outside with the lighter, and you get a fire going. And
I see. So
you get some marshmallows.
So taking a cue from Captain Nick, are you, Rick?
Well, you'd think sitting on top of an undercarriage that has probably been warmed up to around 300 degrees, that would probably be enough heat to do it. But nah, that fuel can get pretty cold in there, so it takes a bit of work.
Absolutely.
I didn't mean to gloss over the first article that CJ sent us. The refers to a ninth grader, Mark Kelm. His desire to build faster and more efficient machines began when he played with a toy gun as a child. That early flirtation with a toy grew into a science project that tests how airplane surface texture affects speed. The Chesapeake Science Point freshman presented his science project at an aerospace engineering conference earlier this month, and he basically did some various wing surfaces, and he had one covered in wrinkled aluminum foil and one covered with sandpaper and one with bumps on the wing. He said that the wrinkled wing had the maximum airlift because the foil helps stabilize the wing from the changes in the wind direction, similar to how dents in golf balls help them fly farther. So that's pretty interesting.
And basically laminar flow control. But the interesting thing about laminar flow control is that the boundary layer, which is the layer of air that's attached to the wing as the aircraft is flying through the air, that layer, air itself is very viscous and sticky. And so the layer of air that's attached to the wing itself is going to move slower than the layer that's immediately on top of that one. And then that one's going to move slower than the layer that's immediately on top of that one, up until you get to a point where the airflow gets to what's called free stream speed. And that depends on density, on temperature, on altitude, and a couple of things. And one very, very interesting form of laminar flow control that was tested back in the 50s and 60s was they would have a system the top side of the wing had these slots that would actually suck that boundary layer in, that sticky, slow-moving boundary layer in, to try to have only the fast-moving free stream layer go over the top of the wing and reduce your drag that way. Very, very interesting stuff. So,
yeah, the F4 had BLC, boundary layer control, although rather than sucking it in, it blew out and re-energized the boundary layer with a jet of hot air down the wing.
Wow. Pretty cool. Really cool stuff.
So do you guys know, trivia question here, how many dimples are on an average golf ball?
347.
That was very close.
Ooh.
Actually. Anyone else want to take a guess? Yeah. So it's between 300 and 500, but 336.
Oh, thank you. Wow.
For inquiring minds out there.
Now, did this 9-year-old
you a golfer
number
no.
to his model?
But that was a question I had when I was reading the article.
Okay.
So I looked.
Sorry, my question was, did this 9-year-old apply Reynolds number to his models?
Like Reynolds wrap? No. Because of the foil? No, never mind. You probably don't even know what Reynolds wrap is.
No.
Reynolds is one of the aluminum companies here in the U.S. So don't think so. I don't think that had anything to do with it, but I'm not sure. But Captain Nick, if you'd like to find out, click on that link, and then you can read the article.
No, I've already
didn't mention it, but do you want to just...
He didn't mention Reynolds at all.
No. Do you want to tell us what it is? Or
it's a factor you have to apply when you are treating models like real airplanes. So when you put something in a wind tunnel and expect it to behave like a real airplane, it won't. So Mr. Reynolds came up with a formula to allow models to be, the effects on models to be upgraded to apply to real aircraft. And there is a factor which is called Reynolds number, which you have to apply.
What a lot of people don't know is that Mr. Reynolds is actually Burt Reynolds, the actor.
Yes, and he worked it out on the Gumball run.
Bryant Gumball. Okay, let's move on with Big Ron. He said, hi, APG crew. This looks very interesting. I bet ATC would love this. And he sent a link to a YouTube video of the TF-X flying car. And wow. I don't know. Looks pretty interesting, but did you look at the video? Any of the rest of you APG
brilliant.
crewers?
I loved it. Yeah.
So I'm thinking, like, what happens when, like, one of those electric motors stops working?
You die.
Okay.
It's very simple.
One less flying car.
Exactly right. And what happens when you have a fender bender up there? That's what I'd like to know.
What I like the very end of it where it says the car, aircraft, whatever we're calling it, lands itself, but as always, you need to make sure that it's safe to do so before you allow it to land. Oh, that was funny.
Yeah,
it makes it sound like it's pretty automated. You just push a button and tell it where you want to go, and it does that. So
yeah, I'll still drive. I'll keep driving my car to the airport and fly airplanes. Just keep them separate.
We've almost got to where the jets. We've now got hoverboards and flying cars. There you go.
Just like that.
Try to sneak that in. Okay, let's move on. Former Allegiant mechanic. Okay, the Allegiant Airlines, they've been having some troubles in the past year or so with mechanical problems and judgment problems, etc. And I guess just recently, this is from Big Data Ken. He said, he sent us a link to an article. Why did Allegiant Air's second in command resign? And then he also sent us an article previous to this regarding a former Allegiant mechanic saying that this airline is dangerous. And looks like things are kind of in turmoil at the airline right now, and maybe they're trying to do some restructuring or something in their safety department. I'm not sure. Remember with the incident where they flew from Las Vegas to Fargo, and they decided to go ahead and land and declare a fuel emergency. Mm-hmm. And then they had the incident that actually bothers me the most is that attempted takeoff in an MD-80 series airplane from Las Vegas, and the one of the bolts on the elevator control arm was broken or something, and the airplane started to rotate well before the rotation speed, and they managed to get the airplane stopped and not airborne with the fact that half of their elevator was not working. And that's the one that got my attention. But looks like they're trying to right the ship over there at Allegiant by firing or making or having the second in command resign. What do you think about all this?
Is this the same outfit where the pilot was sacked for doing the evacuation?
Yes, it was.
And did this deputy guy just leave the airline because he thought it was sinking?
I don't know. Could be. Yeah. Maybe he saw the writing on the wall and said, I'm getting out of here.
Well, yeah, corporate manslaughter is that's a pretty heavy thing to come on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and anytime maintenance is compromised, you never, ever compromise safety for profits, ever. And then once that even becomes an issue, you need to put the brakes on, take a couple steps back and go, all right, we need to slow down, we need to do things right, because this could be deadly. And, nobody wants that. You never compromise safety for profits.
Veteran aircraft mechanic Greg Marino worked at Allegiant Air for just 2 weeks before he quit of what he said was the airline's dangerous maintenance practices. And he said that they failed to follow proper procedures in diagnosing aircraft problems and routinely misused a Federal Aviation Administration program that allowed planes under some conditions to fly with inoperative components or systems. Of course, we're talking about the master equipment list and maintenance carryover items and that kind of thing. And even airlines like mine, will fly airplanes that have issues that are deferred for maintenance. They're not safety issues, but apparently they were misusing the system, alleged by Greg Marino. And he said
right, because just as anything on an airplane, there are certain things that you can be dispatched. Certain systems that can be not operating for you to be dispatched, but these obviously have to be things that are not safety of flight related, and these things have an expiration date, and there are different. There are different classes of systems and different types of expiration dates that apply to different types of systems depending on how important or how critical they are. So that there's category A, at least in my airline, category A, B, C, and D. A being that if you write a category A item up, it needs to be fixed by the next flight. Category B is 3 days. Category C is 10 days. And category D is, I forget because we never get category D stuff. And so basically you go on one of the first things I do, or any pilot does when they go on the jet for the first time, and even before I do the walk around, I'll go on and I'll check out the maintenance logbook and see what is deferred on the aircraft so that I know what to look for on my walk around, and I know what to look for on the engine indicator and crew alert and system screens up in the flight deck to know what condition my aircraft is in. And as I said, these things have an expiration date. Once that date arrives, if that item is not fixed, then you're not legal to go flying. No way, no how.
Yeah. Well, Neville's just asked if I could mention about a dispatch problem I had the other day. I'm just trying to remember what the hell it was. So
was that the one in New York? Or Boston? Boston.
No, sorry, Nev. Can't. Out of Miami, he says. Let me have a think. I remember it now. There are a number of sensors on the control sticks, and if you have one that is giving a faulty feedback, then obviously you can't go until that has been isolated. Now, it's a pretty complicated thing, the Airbus stick, and it has feedbacks for every flight control computer. So when you are getting a fully sensor feedback, it usually requires a lot of in-depth maintenance action, which is not available on outstations like St. Lucia. So it's actually easier and quicker to do what was it decided to do, which was turn off the flight control computer that was connected to that those faulty sensors. Or we didn't even know how many there were. And having done so, you then do rigorous checks to make sure that all the other flight control computers are working fine. And then you're in a state where you can go. So you can't go with a faulty sensor that could be giving you bad information. You can turn off that entire system and effectively kill those sensors and go with the remaining 4 flight control computers, because we have 5. So that was the reason. And the reason it was a 2-hour delay, because it took the engineer an hour and 45 minutes to check all the other control computers and make sure that everything on the airplane was working with those. And that's one of the requirements of going under that dispatch. And then the other 15 minutes was doing the paperwork.
Yeah, usually the paperwork takes the longest.
Yeah, usually.
Oh, yeah. All right. David Corsten writes, I'm a relatively new listener, having found the podcast about 3 months ago, and I'm making my way through the back catalog, and I've listened to 110 episodes so far. I think that's about 250 hours. Ooh, APG syndrome. Yeah.
It really is.
I'm 27 from the UK, and I've started to realize my dream of becoming an airline pilot. I'm making a career change, and about a year ago began applying to ab initio training schemes here in England. I must stress here that I've researched as thoroughly as possible and taken in as much advice as possible given the huge monetary commitments necessary. I applied to CTC Aviation and have successfully secured a place and am due to begin training in June this year. I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for you all for the huge effort you put into the show and how much it's helped me throughout my selection process. I know you must get mountains of feedback now. Yeah. And in some of that are people with questions about training in the UK. Throughout the last year, I've gained a wealth of knowledge about various training programs, and I'd be happy for you to pass on my details to anyone with any questions about this. I'll be starting a blog when I start training, so people can check that out if they'd like. I look forward to meeting you in Farnborough, although I feel I may be slightly starstruck. Don't. We're just regular people like you, man, David. By the way, absolutely loved the 200 show. I watched it on Blab and will be doing the same tonight. And this was back on the 13th of January. So this is a couple weeks ago. So thanks, David, for finding us and becoming part of our community. And we'd love to hear about your journey and your experience with the ab initio training at CTC.
Yeah. Please let us know. Keep us updated.
CTC have good reputation. They're the outfit I think that Acme Red are putting their cadets through. So good luck with them and good luck with your course.
That sounds like a red flag to me.
No, it's the right color.
Oh, he's in the chat room. So
oh, yes, good.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, well done.
Perfect.
Excellent.
David?
I was going to say, definitely keep us updated because that is one of the most common questions I think we get in the feedback is about people wanting to know about ab initio training. And then also people who are starting at what they think are relatively older ages, so mid-20s, early 30s. So it'd be good to have some of that feedback as how you progress.
That's
certainly right.
And with 250... oh, nice.
Airline pilot guy.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Nick.
No, I was just saying with the 250 hours of APG listing, you've almost got a commercial license already, haven't you?
Did you say APG, that radio station, WAPG?
Oh,
WAPG. Airline pilot guy.
Yeah.
Very
nice.
good. Very
Awesome.
All right. Let's move on with Janice from an Estonian living in London. I'm a holder of a PPL and have a question and a comment about topics recently covered in APG. First, in the episode 200, you had a feedback that Airbus shutting engines down automatically in reference to Captain Sully's ditching into the Hudson. All of you, while already speaking slowly and softly, agreed that the plane does not shut the engines down automatically. However, it is my memory from reading the report about QF-32, the Qantas flight, the A380, that the engine controls have to shut down the engine in certain conditions, as some of the events could turn catastrophic in milliseconds, faster than any pilot could process this information, and much less react to it. Following a quote from this report, quote, Rolls-Royce also released an engine control software update that included an IP turbine overspeed protection system, IPTOS, that is designed to shut the engine down before the turbine disk can overspeed in the unlikely event that a similar failure occurs. And then secondly, I hate to beat a dead horse. Why not? We all do. But there seems to be a crucial bit of explanation that every article and person discussing assumed temperature takeoff seems to leave out and still has me confused. The common explanation is something along the lines that we fool the engine into believing that the outside air temperature is higher, therefore less thrust is available. This, however, does not compute, as one would assume that the engine would want to compensate for higher temperature by adding power, not reducing it. Of course, there is a limitation of how much one could safely add, and some other limit might kick in. There's the key. My current understanding from this is that the engine still measures and knows the correct air temperature, and the assumed temperature is just the easiest or safest variable to modify for your balanced field takeoff calculations. And the engine knows that a different EPR, calculated fuel flow, or some similar parameter needs to be commanded for thrust reduction. Could any or all of you please shed a light on this one? Thank you, and keep up the good work. Again, that's Janice from London, an Estonian.
Can I have a go at that first bit, Jeff?
Please do.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that turbine overspeed protection, you're quite right, Janice. It does shut the engine down, but I think you have to draw a differentiation between a system that is going to stop the engine from disintegrating, spraying a lumps of red hot turbine around, which could hit other engines going through the fuselage up into the wing and destroy further systems. So you've already got an engine that is irrecoverably damaged or about to disintegrate. So there's a significant difference between that logic of shutting the engine down at that point and the sort of logic that would simultaneously cut off fuel to an engine that was merely suffering a momentary disturbance in airflow, for example. And I think that's the situation we were thinking of, was you wouldn't want the aircraft, both engines in the aircraft, to go, oh, bit of a hiccup here. I'm just going to shut this engine down because I've got a momentary stall, and that to happen on both engines at once. The fact is that that turbine overspeed, if it didn't happen, you'd end up with a much bigger emergency than just losing an engine. And if you didn't have it, the engine's going to die anyway. So, that having the aircraft shut itself down at that point is ideal. So that's the significant difference, I think, there. That's it. That's my bit. And I'm going to leave flex temperature to Rick.
So I'm sorry.
I want Rick to go ahead, and then I want to see if I can sum up afterwards, because I had to go read about this too, and I think I understand. But let's listen to Rick, and then I'll see. If
I think let's let Dr. Steph do it, because I think
no. I'm going to let Rick
go. Rick, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna very. Get the crickets ready. But you might not need him, because this is gonna be quick and easy. So basically, he said
that's what she said.
It's only 5 minutes this time. So he said that we fool the engines into thinking that the outside temperature is higher, then therefore less thrust is available. Well, it's not that less thrust is available. It's just that by fooling the engine or introducing an assumed temperature, and hence the name assumed temperature takeoff, by introducing an assumed temperature into the system, the engine thinks that it is producing what would be equivalent to maximum thrust at that assumed temperature. So it's not that there's less thrust available because the engine thinks it's hotter out. It's just that the engine is producing what it believes is max thrust at that assumed temperature. Now we have to remember here that temperature, the hotter it is, the lower the density of the air is. So temperature is inversely proportional to density. And thrust, the higher the density of the air, the more thrust that engine puts out. So thrust is directly proportional to density, right? And so if it is, let's say, for ease to make my example easy here, so if it's 10 degrees outside, right, and your takeoff runway available is long enough, and your accelerate stop distance available is way shorter than your takeoff runway available, and you're able to assume or trick the engine into thinking that it's actually hotter outside, you're going to tell the thrust management computer or the thrust management system that it's actually 25 or 30 degrees outside. So once you select TOGO power or takeoff go-around power, the engine is going to think that it's putting out maximum thrust at if the temperature outside was 30 degrees, but it's only 10 degrees outside, and the engine is putting out what it thinks is max thrust at 30 degrees with air at 10 degree density. So you are producing, yes, less thrust because the engine thinks that it's producing thrust with less dense air, but you're actually producing that thrust with the same density air. I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly here. Do you guys understand that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I was going to try and sum up, but I wanted to listen to you hear it first, because I didn't think I was going to do a good job of explaining it. But so basically, because the air is less dense, the engine knows that at that temperature, it can only produce so much thrust. So that's what it's going to set, even though that's not the actual outside air temperature.
Exactly
correct?
Right. So the engine is producing what it thinks is max thrust if the temperature was 30 degrees outside, but it's only 10 degrees outside. That's what you're assuming, those extra 20 degrees. So you're producing max thrust at 30 degrees outside, but with air density at 10 degrees. You see?
Right.
It took me about 10 times reading through some like various different explanations of that to actually, I was understanding the words that they were saying, but just to understand the actual concept, it took me a bunch of times to go through it
it's not an easy
make
concept.
Sense of it in my head.
It really
no, when they first started introducing it to my company, I was going like, what? I was scratching my head going, I don't understand this. But so in other words, as Rick just said, if you don't need all that power, because you're lighter weight or whatever, you want to say engine wear and tear. And at my company, when every single takeoff that we take, we get this data, this takeoff data, uploaded via our ACARs, not uploaded, but we print it out, and it has different power settings based on the current environmental conditions and the weight of the airplane, et cetera, and the length of the runway. And they will give you, if you don't need full power, it'll give you like flex 50, flex 40, 35, and then normal power dry and normal power wet. All these different, and it gives you the maximum weights that you can be to use these power settings, both climb limit weights and runway allowable weights. And then we look at it and we say, well, look, we based on this weight and the conditions, we can use an assumed temperature of 50 degrees Celsius, which is what, like 100 and some, it's like really hot.
It's hot.
And basically we enter that setting into our thrust panel, and we tell the engine that's what the temperature is, and that's what you're going to have to assume that the temperature is here. So it's not going to use that full, so it's going to be like maybe 75, 80% of the full power, because we don't need that full power, and it saves wear and tear on the engine.
That's just something that the engine already knows based on how it's calibrated.
But
correct? So it's only going to.
But here's the thing: if it was 50 degrees outside, that would be full power.
Yes,
but it's
correct.
But it's not.
But it's not.
And here's the thing:
because of the air density,
right? And here's the thing: if it was 50 degrees outside, that would be full power, and you'd be using air at 50 degrees worth of density, whatever that is, volume wise, to produce that thrust. But it is only 20 degrees outside, and you're assuming those extra 30 degrees with colder air. So it's a very conservative calculation. So
Big Al, how do we kick people out of the chat room?
I think we can ban them.
Does the Mad Dog need water injection for takeoff?
No, but Captain Jeff does.
Yeah, I need some kind of injection.
So coming back to this, so when I was going back and reading through all of this, then the other question that always seemed to come up from people who were asking this question is, how is this different from D-rated takeoffs? And I know we've talked about this a whole bunch before.
Well, D-rated is all you're doing. You have to picture your maintenance personnel outside taking one bigger engine, and swapping it out for a smaller type engine. That's what D-rate means. You're basically using a smaller engine in place of a bigger engine. And then you can do a combination of D-rated takeoff and assumed temperature method. So you can D-rate the takeoff, and then on top of that, if you're performance-wise, you can do it. You can also assume a temperature to even reduce your takeoff thrust even more so. But up until only, at least here in the United States, FAA requirement, a maximum of 25% from your max rated thrust. That is the bottom line there, like the floor.
But another way to think about it just simply is that's an actual setting that you select. It's not based on, it's not flexible like the temperature.
Exactly right. And the way it works in a lot of airplanes, what they do, the 76, 777, 75, and I don't know how it works in the Mad Dog or the Airbus type platforms. At least for us, a full rated engine is TO, and then you have a TO1 for a 10% D rate, which would give you 90% thrust, which is an engine that is 90% as powerful as your normal engine would be. And then you have a TO2, takeoff 2, which is a 20% D rate, which is an engine that would be 80% as powerful as your normal engine. And then, so that's the difference between D rate and assumed temperature.
Yeah, we don't have the D rate capability on. Well, we used to in the MD-90. We had the ability to D rate it from 28,000 to 25,000, and but now all the airplanes are 28,000. So. Good questions, though, and it is kind of confusing. But basically, the bottom line is when you don't need all that thrust and to say wear and tear on the engines and the, the higher risk of engine failure on takeoff, to utilize a lower power setting is the safe way to go. So John Applegate in the chat room asks, I fly the Bombardier Global 8000 at least 3 times a week. I never have been able to find out what the red button under the seat does. I've read all the manuals and talked to many pilots, and no one can figure it out. Any chance you would know what this is? John, don't push the red button because that's the ejection button.
That's right.
Yeah, you got to look up and make sure there's not a hatch up there.
I picture it's the circuit breaker for your seat electric motor.
Oh.
Now there's a logical answer.
There you go. And you know what? Now that you mentioned that makes a lot of sense, because next to the buttons that we use to move the seat around, there is actually a red button that is there to disconnect the electrical portion of that seat motor. Huh. There you go.
Okay. Dave from the boat says it turns on the popcorn machine.
For that.
Well, I think it fires the magic into the engine that does the flex for you.
There you go.
There you go.
Oh, that could be it.
There's an answer.
There is an answer. We have all kinds of answers here at the APG.
That's how
Most
we roll.
of them are wrong, but we have answers. All right, moving along here. Hampton Roads Mike said, I thought you might be interested in the article linked below. And it was about a flight attendant who smuggled cocaine in spandex underwear, gets prison time. And you would think when you hear that, spandex underwear, that was a female flight attendant. Yeah, you'd be wrong.
No.
40-year-old Rowan Myers was sentenced Wednesday after pleading guilty in October to a drug smuggling charge. He was arrested at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport after working on a Caribbean Airlines flight from Montego Bay, Jamaica. And they searched his baggage, and then he admitted he was smuggling cocaine, showing officers 4 packages duct taped to his thighs and ankles, concealed in the long-legged compression pants he was wearing under his uniform.
Masha says, bad boys.
Oh, yeah.
Not the TSA,
sorry.
but.
Good point there. Let me see if I can find that.
I actually thought we should have played that earlier for the flight attendants fighting, too.
I know. I'm really falling down on my
I meant to mention that.
sound clip playing duties here. I'm still trying to get used to this this layout, this app that I'm using for sound playing apps. I'm just not comfortable with it yet. Oh, well.
I was just stalling because my Evernote also decided to quit, and I can't get it back. That's okay. Keep going.
Well, at least you're still here, so that's
yeah,
good.
I'm still here. I haven't also disappeared yet. That's probably
let's see. Jason, he's 13 years old, and he sent us some audio feedback. Let's listen to that.
All right.
Hi, airline pilot guy, and whoever may be receiving this call. My name is Jason, and I'm just calling from Sydney, Australia. I am 13, and I have a general interest in aviation. This is the first time I've ever left feedback, and I just want to say I love your show and everything that's included in it. And yeah, this isn't really feedback, but more of a congratulations on your 200 episodes, and happy bicentennial, and really happy for you guys. I saw you guys have a YouTube channel. I went ahead and checked that. It's really cool. I just love your show, and yeah. Thank you guys for the amazing show, and hope you guys have unlimited visibility, tailwinds, and God bless. Bye.
See, I'm not the only one that has trouble with unlimited.
That was awesome feedback.
Yes,
Great
thank you,
feedback.
Jason.
I think that's the best piece of feedback so far.
Absolutely.
It is.
Most
And he says, you know,
we love
ahead.
Australia.
Yeah. And he says, you know, this really isn't feedback. And I said, well, you know, this really isn't professional answers from real pilots either.
Nope.
No, it really is. Thank you, Jason. And he said he loved the APG theme. He wants to make it a ringtone on his phone. So I'll have to contact you, Jason, in regard to that. Moving on, Joseph Schema sent a picture from LaGuardia, and he said, LGA, Frozen in Time, B concourse. He snapped a photo of a one of those lighting system guiding systems into a gate, and it says L1011 on the left side and DC10 on the right. So,
and it used to say auto gyro on the bottom, but they took that one out last week.
It used to say
last week.
Right flyer.
With 1.5 strutter. Yes.
Now I did notice that you'll notice in the left hand part of the frame, the top of the current control tower. So, the old control tower you would not have been able to see because it was much lower in height. So,
I'm interested about what it must have been like to land a DC-10 or an L-1011 at LaGuardia. That must. I
can tell you.
Let's hear some stories.
Let's hear them.
No, I've mentioned this.
And
I've mentioned this a few times on the show. My first my initial operating experience. Are we going to talk about that tonight? I think we are. On the L-1011 as a co-pilot. I only flew it as a first officer co-pilot. Was up from Atlanta to LaGuardia, and they were using the expressway visual approach at LaGuardia, and it was really interesting when I finally started rolling out for runway 31. I looked at that relatively. Now, for those of you who fly general aviation, a 7,000-foot runway is a long runway. When you're flying an L-1011 and you're looking at the piers jutting into the in Flushing Bay, you go, really? We're going to land on that? And it's just it's interesting. But actually, the hardest part is not landing on the runway. It's taxiing around the airport, because the taxiways are pretty close together. You have to be very careful of your wingspan on larger airplanes. But
wow,
yeah. It's interesting. And of course, my company, we had 3 different versions of the L-1011, the -1, the 250, and the 250 and the 500? Oh my gosh, 500. Thank you. And the 250 and the 500 had much better brakes. They had the carbon brakes. The -1, which held the most passengers, 302 passengers, had the smaller engines and the steel brakes, which weren't as effective as the carbon brakes. And of course, you know which one we used to fly from Atlanta to LaGuardia, the one that held the most passengers, the one that had the smallest engines and the worst brakes.
And the captain's last name was Murphy.
It was definitely an eye opener getting that airplane down on the ground on that thing. But anyway, so enough of that. Enough reminiscing. Let's see. Continuing with Frick. He says, a new Mile High Club. And of course, it's nothing what you're thinking. You get your mind out of the gutter.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
He says a South African Airlines passenger was robbed while the plane was in the air. Unbelievable? Right. Well, there's a Mile High syndicate responsible for nicking around 6.5 million. What's the R in front of 6.5? Is that a rand?
Rand. Yeah.
Okay.
South African.
And stolen goods
which
in the last
is about
9 months.
$35, I think.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Wow. So that's a huge number, then.
No, divide other way.
The rand's taking a bit of a dive. I think it's about 20 to the pound at the moment. So about 15 to the dollar, I guess.
Okay. So that in US dollars, then that 6.5 million would be considerably less than $6.5 million, right?
But still a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Still a lot of, yeah.
So he says, where do they even go once the job's done? So there's a syndicate operating on flights to Asian destinations that's causing quite a bit of trouble, and the Hong Kong police recently published information about criminal activities on board flights. So I guess people are going through the overhead bins and rummaging through bags and looting a lot of people for their money.
Well, be safe about your stuff too. If you're traveling, and in various parts of the world where maybe security is not as well enforced, even on board aircraft, keep your valuables on you or as close to you as possible. Don't let them out of your sight. That type of thing. I mean, I don't know why you would put a lot of valuables in. Go ahead.
Sometimes it's difficult when you're one of the last ones to board, and there's very little space in the overhead bin, and you can't put your bag like directly above where you're sitting, or in front of where you're sitting.
You probably go underneath your seat, if you can't at all.
Yeah, good advice. Take those valuables out and put them in a smaller bag and keep them with you.
Right.
I'm just trying to work out how, despite the fact they searched all the passengers, they couldn't find these lost cash. So where were the guys stashing it?
In their
passages?
No. In their what was it, tights, or what was it the last person was smuggling?
Compression.
Spandex.
Spandex.
Yeah, in their spandex. Spandex was the word I was looking for. Yeah.
See, that guy has a cousin that works for South African, and
right. It's a large syndicate.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
You think it's an enclosed space? They obviously can't get rid of the stuff. You think if you searched everyone that came off and all the luggage, you'd find it eventually. I don't understand that.
Yeah. Apparently, they're not being very effective, or maybe they've greased the skids, as they say, with the authorities, and they're getting away with it that way. I don't know. All right. Thank you, Frick, for that. Janelle writes, downloaded your new app today and tried sending you feedback from it, but doesn't seem to quite work yet. Well, we got that fixed. Looks like it will be a super simple way to keep up with what's going on in the podcast and with everyone in the community. It is, and when you download the Android version yourself, if you're an Android user, you'll see how nice it is to have the Airline Pilot Guy app. And then for those of you who are iOS devotees, you'll be thrilled, I think, as we are. We have the pre-release version, and it's working pretty well, I think. She continues, I'm a bit late sending this, but I wanted to congratulate you on 200 great episodes. The bicentennial episode was indeed epic. By the end, I was torn between being misty-eyed right along with you, she's talking to me, and laughing out loud at the reading of the feedback. She uses quotes in the reading. Thank you, Janelle. I was trying. I was at work.
Did a fine
listening.
Job of it. Yeah.
You did.
Sure. I was at work listening to it, as I usually am, and I was so amused that I turned to my friend in the next cube and told her all about your podcast and how inebriated you all were. She looked at me like I was crazy, but what does she know? Anyway, again, thank you for so many awesome shows. Can't wait for the next 200. Next time you're in St. Louis, there definitely needs to be another meetup. Yes, there definitely does need to be another meetup there, Janelle. Thank you very much for your feedback. And the other Andreas from Sweden writes, hi, Captain Jeff crew. Andreas from Sweden here. Not the glider pilot Andreas who recently sent audio feedback. I should add. So maybe I should call myself the other Andreas. If you've already covered this or want to cover it in the news, feel free to skip. We'll see. First, on the sad note, we recently had a freighter jet go down in the north of Sweden. I think we did talk about this a few episodes back when this happened. A CRJ 200 freighter went down in the far north of Sweden, and he put a link to the Aviation Herald article, and haven't heard much about it on any of the aviation podcasts I listen to, so I thought I should give you a heads up. The plane, a converted CRJ 200, seemingly went nose first into the ground from level flight at flight level 330, all in roughly 2 minutes. It's quite a mystery. The latest info is that the descent seems to have started with a sharp right turn. Of course, it's too early to say if that suggests an emergency descent that went wrong or if something already had happened to cause the aircraft to point sharply towards the ground. My thoughts are with the two pilots and their families and friends, and I hope the investigation will eventually give them some closure while also helping to improve safety. And I looked just quickly this evening before we recorded the show to see if there was any kind of an update on this, and they said that on January 26th, So last week, the SHK reported that the investigation managed to read out both cockpit voice and flight data recorders. The CVR does contain the talks of the crew during the accident flight. The investigation is currently analyzing and validating the recordings. A preliminary report is estimated to be released in a week or two. So we should know something pretty soon regarding this terrible accident. We'll put a link to the Aviation Herald article in the show notes. And that's all we know, at least for now, Andreas, the other Andreas, as far as this accident's concerned. Anything on that, guys, before we move on to the second part of his feedback?
I got nothing. I can't believe that you would lose 33,000 feet in 2 minutes. That is, wow.
That's fast.
I mean, that is very, very fast. Even when flying an emergency descent, I mean, I don't think you'd ever go
That's
down.
beyond an emergency descent.
You know, because the emergency descent is what I would say between 6, maybe 8,000 feet per minute. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe 10. Yeah,
maybe 10, but 15,000 feet a minute, I can't even. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And then he said, a question regarding in-flight alcohol service. I frequently hear about flights being diverted due to unruly drunk passengers, or where the crew and sometimes fellow passengers have had to subdue such passengers while the plane continues to the destination. More often than not, it seems that alcohol is a factor in these incidents. Knowing what we know about how alcohol affects bodily systems up at altitude, a subject I remember Dr. Steph going into in an earlier podcast, why are we serving alcohol on board? Aside from the more extreme events where someone goes nuts, it can't really be helpful in an emergency situation, or an emergency evacuation, excuse me. So what do you folks think? Is it just a leftover from the glory days of flying? Is it even preferred since it tends to make most of us sleepy and therefore less prone to bother the cabin crew? Or is it just another revenue source for the carrier? Either way, if it were up to you, would you keep the service or get rid of it? So what do you guys think?
A good question and a lot of valid points, and I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts in a minute. But it's one of those things where I think there's a few people out there who are ruining it for the rest of us. I don't think most people, and hopefully not, most people are consuming alcohol to the extent where they are so impaired that they're becoming unruly, fighting, or are a hazard to themselves or someone else in the event of an emergency. But yeah. It does have a lot of effects on bodily systems. We've talked about hypoxia before. If you consume enough alcohol, that creates its own type of hypoxia where your cells aren't able to utilize or metabolize oxygen. Yeah, Captain Nick is showing his
histotoxic. Right?
It is histotoxic hypoxia. Good call there. So there are definitely impacts and factors there, and I think you could probably argue this one either way for a lot of different reasons. Personally, I like to enjoy my one beer or other alcoholic beverage on commercial flights. Yeah. What do you guys think?
Captain Al says, we serve alcohol, otherwise off-duty pilots wouldn't fly. I think that, as I've mentioned before, and Captain Al knows this very well because he does counseling and training for people that have anxiety about flying, fear of flying. I think that, again, alcohol for most of the population serves as a way of kind of placating their fear or anxiety of flying. I know that when I'm non-revving, I'm not, flying as a pilot, like to have like a glass of wine or a beer. It is kind of, it's just relaxing to me. And also the point regarding the revenue, I think, is also probably a big part of it as well. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, unless you're like us, where it's all complimentary, in which case no revenue factor involved at all. My feeling is that commercially, you're trying to make this as pleasurable an experience as possible. If you're serving good food and you've got a long flight ahead of you, everyone's nice and laid back and relaxed, having a glass of wine or a beer is perfectly acceptable. And I think it brings the flying environment into a normal environment because it's what we would probably do at home. it's rather nice to be greeted with a glass of champagne when you come on an airplane. It makes you feel a bit special. The problem, of course, comes because people don't realize the effect that alcohol has on you at altitude. It's very much enhanced. And it's just the very few who can't keep themselves down to just a few drinks and insist on making this into a party flight. And then many of us behave quite well when we've had a few too many drinks. We become quite benign and, we just love everybody. But there are a few who become aggressive and become obnoxious and become a real pain in the ass. So they're the ones that unfortunately you can't account for. And that's when it becomes a problem.
Absolutely, and it's the same thing on our on my outfit. Alcohol is complimentary, and if even in economy, in the economy section of the aircraft, people get their wine, either white or red or beer, or after dinner, I guess. Drink, and it's complimentary, and even more so up in the business class section. And yes, just as Captain Nick said, it's all about knowing your limits and not crossing that line. But apparently there's always that one person who thinks it's spring break every day. So just know your limits, people.
Yeah, I'm one of those that I think Captain Nick was talking specifically about me. If I have a little bit to drink, I kind of get very lovey. I love you, man.
Love you guys.
I love you too, man. You're gonna make me cry.
Group hug.
Okay, but good question though, Andreas from Sweden, the other Andreas. So
it'd be a hard thing to exclude from flights unless everybody did it, because once one airline decides not to, most of the passengers are going to move to an airline that does. So that's a difficult
In which case it is very much revenue driven then, because regardless of whether it's complimentary or not, right?
And
yes.
Anecdotally speaking, I've been flying for Acme for 27 years, and I have never, ever experienced a situation personally where somebody, because of their alcohol, I've had little minor issues that were kind of handled immediately, and sometimes before we left the gate, so we didn't take them with us. But as far as in-flight problems with people imbibing too much, I've really never had a problem with that. So, of course, tomorrow now it's going to be a major problem, I'm sure. But
yeah, well, to be fair, you're only airborne for about 30 minutes, so people don't have to drink pretty fast to get drunk on your flight.
Sometimes I fly a little bit longer than that. Thank you very much.
An hour.
40 minutes.
40
No, I fly from Atlanta to Denver and from New York to Miami. Come on, leave me alone. That's okay. You guys can have your long haul flights and your drunks.
And our drunk passengers, yes, because I've had plenty.
Drunk boxes.
Yeah, I got
unruly boxes.
Unruly, drunk elephants in the back. They're a pain as well.
But
in the front. No, but seriously, I've had episodes where I remember one time I was really this close to setting the aircraft down because this one passenger. This was the day after a soccer or football match in Ecuador, in Guayaquil, the city where I used to live. These two passengers were, obviously fans of rival teams, and they were sitting right next to each other. And, one started poking fun at the other one, and then dinner came along, and then the drinks came along, and then they, all of a sudden, they weren't getting along that well to begin with. And then add to that a 7,000-foot cabin altitude and a couple of beers, and, it gets pretty interesting afterwards. And so this one guy, it all started with the armrest, and then this, and then, poking at each other. And then this one guy took the other guy's passport and would not give it back to him, and it was like two kids. And I just got a call on the interphone up in the flight decks telling me that, these guys were about to start tearing the cabin down. And I'm like, and I went on the PA and I was like, okay, so you either quiet down, pipe down, sit down, shut up, or I'm going to have to put this thing down and the flight is over. And they quieted down, and we kept on going our merry way. I was really this close to send it down. I wouldn't have cared anyway. I mean, I'm not going to have 220 people, put in danger because of two drunks. No way.
Yeah, not worth
it. Quite right.
Yeah, and he asks all of us, would we get rid of it if we had the power to do so? I wouldn't.
No, me neither.
Okay. All right, I'll drink to that.
Cheers.
Let's see. Yep, cheers. Well, it's all gone. Steve Graham writes, I trust this finds you in the pink. I've been an avid listener for a couple of years. Very much enjoy your show. I have a couple of comments on the recent discussion of Concorde pilot Andre Turcotte. How do you say that again, Captain Nick?
I don't know. I'm not French.
Okay.
I can't see the
middle feet. Andre. You have a Concorde pilot Andre is passing. I must admit to being a trifle gobsmacked that a man of old Captain Nick's vintage and stature was unaware of the term "gone west," especially given the fondness of our British friends for colloquialism. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
colloquialism. Thank you. Wow. I have long been a lover of nautical lore and lingo, much of which informs our aviation legacy. Terms common in our vernacular are often lost to antiquity. However, I find it quite interesting to learn of the origins of others. For example, how many today realize the term "the cat's out of the bag" dates to the era when whips were used for punishment on board naval ships? The cat o' 9 tails was a whip that diabolically had 9 individual strands at its end, terminated in knots that, when laid to an unfortunate sailor's back, extracted a brutal toll on his flesh. Therefore, the term "the cat's out of the bag" literally means someone's going to be put to the lash. Or, from the sounds of it during episode 200, 3 sheets to the wind, meaning a ship has lost control of her lines. Yeah, the sheets, I think, are the sails at the beginning, at the front of the ship, and if you don't have the sheets taut, and they're,
I think it might be the ropes. I think a sheet is a rope.
I thought the sheet was actually the. Okay.
No, I think it's a rope. No, I'm happy to be corrected there, but I did actually know the term "gone west," but you have to excuse the memory, not the lack of knowledge. It was there somewhere. I just couldn't pull it out. And there are plenty others which I love, actually. Square meals. That's a naval term, because they used to serve up on square platters because they didn't have room to put round plates on them. What's more, they moved around, so they used to have square platters so that they could jam them up against each other. That's where square meals came from. And swinging a cat, there's no room to swing a cat. That refers to, again, delivering a whipping, because you had to have enough space to swing the cat and 9 tails. Anyway, do carry on, Joe.
Okay. There seems to be a debate as to the origins of the term "gone" or "flying west." It predates, but was in popular usage during World War I, when sick or killed in action were sent west to the lines. It also seems to be symbolically related to the idea of venturing or flying off into the sunset. The eulogization of pilots is a rich subject that might be worthy of a topic in its own right. I was fortunate to have a father who fostered my love of flight. He was a ball-bearing stew turned pilot from 1948 to 1983. His and others' memory and legacy ride with me each time I advance the thrust levers. What does ball-bearing stew mean? I've never heard of that term.
No, not me.
Interesting.
Don't know.
Okay, A couple of my favorites. To fly west, my friend, is one final check we all must take, and that's attributed to unknown. Flying west, and we've all heard this one, I think. It's worth reading, I think. I hope there's a place way up in the sky where pilots can go when they have to die. A place where a guy can go and buy a cold beer for a friend and comrade whose memory is dear. A place where no doctor or lawyer can tread, nor management type would e'er be caught dead. Just a quaint little place, kind of dark and full of smoke, where they like to sing loud and love a good joke. The kind of place where a lady could go and feel safe and protected by the men she would know. There must be a place where old pilots go when their painting is finished and their airspeed gets low, where the whiskey is old and the women are young, and the songs about flying and dying are sung, where you'd see all the fellows who'd flown west before, and they'd call out your name as you came through the door, who would buy you a drink if your thirst should be bad, and relate to the others, he was quite a good lad. And then, through the mist, you'd spot an old guy you had not seen for years, though he taught you how to fly. He'd nod his old head and grin ear to ear and say, "Welcome, my son. I'm pleased that you're here. For this is the place where true flyers come. When the journey is over and the war has been won, they have come here at last to be safe and alone from the government clerk and the management clone, politicians and lawyers, the feds and the noise, where the hours are happy and these good old boys can relax with a cool one and a well-deserved rest. This is heaven, my son. You've passed your last test." That's a great one.
Wow. That was very, very nice.
TWA Captain Michael Larkin, and dedicated to E. Ham Lee, United's first pilot who flew a DC-3 with Clay Lacey on the occasion of his 100th birthday. And nice. He says a P.S. here. I bought you a cup of Joe. Thank you, Steve. As I was doing so, I was reminded of Scott Stoops. Scott is the United pilot who was able to leapfrog an Atlas 747 with his own 737 at Chicago's O'Hare by rotating well below V1. An ATC mix-up had led to the runway incursion. After the incident had been laid to rest, the safety department, whom Captain Stoops had written up a lessons learned for, sent him a Starbucks gift card. A short time later, he decided to use it to buy he and his first officer a coffee and pastry. When the check came, there was a significant shortfall of funds because it turns out that the card was only for $5. That's terrible.
Thanks for doing this.
$5 US. Out of curiosity, Scott then asked, "What is the smallest denomination that can be placed on a gift card?" The answer, $5 US. So much for the gratitude of a grateful airline. Anyway, hoping my contribution will buy you and a flying partner of your choice at least a cup and a pastry. It truly is the least I can do. Laugh out loud.
I love it.
And by the way, he sent me a $5 contribution to the... No, he didn't.
He sent you an actual $5 gift card in the mail.
That is like a slap in the face, isn't it? Job well done. Here you go. There's $5. That should cover your coffee.
Go choke on your coffee and pastry.
That's excellent.
He continues, sincerenautically, Steve Graham.
I love that.
I love that. Wow.
Yeah, Steve, that was a great feedback. Thank you so much.
Absolutely excellent. And I might point out, Steve, that the American Heritage Dictionary of Idioms suggests that "go west" was an expression ascribed to Native Americans. The legend be that a dying man goes to meet the setting suns. However, it was first recorded in a poem in the early 1300s. Women and many a willful man, as wind and water have gone west. There you go.
Very nice. That was a nice exclamation point for that great feedback. Thanks again, Steve. Jules sent some audio feedback. Let's hear what he has to say, shall we?
All right.
And Jeff and all the crew at APG. It's Jules here again from Down Under with some feedback about maximising the health of the pilot population for safety of the public and longevity. I'm sure that Dr. Steph will correct some of my feedback as I'm not an MD. We all know that we service our cars and airplanes, but for our bodies, we only use prevention with drugs and consume too much sugar and diet drinks, which are really damaging to our bodies. As I see it, sugar is needed, but from my knowledge, it is better to consume unsaturated fats such as omega-3 and less omega-6 fats, because in our Western diet, we tend to have more omega-6 than omega-3 fats. By the way, also the brain is 80% cholesterol, and consuming egg and meat products occasionally can decrease the risk of stroke significantly. Before moving on to servicing your body, firstly I suggest a liver detox supplement to make sure all is good with That and also a good exercise program that gets your heart rate up there and get those endorphins circulating. Please explain, Dr. Steph. I achieve this with a good treadmill. I use it because I don't like the odd dog crying wolf when I jog down the street, and it's far safer in the comfort of my own home. Beer is best because, as we know, it contains B vitamins that relax and neutralizes the caffeine levels we need, especially to maintain a good level of constant alertness, of course, only on our days off. I came across a very interesting book written by Qantas Airways Boeing 747 captain that addressed the need for monitoring a pilot's health and keeping him or her healthy and thus feeling better in the process. The book is called The New Health Revolution by Captain Ross Horn and was primarily written because he was fed up of seeing his fellow airline pilots' careers come to an end because of health problems, mainly cardiovascular problems, i.e. heart disease and stroke, cancer and diabetes caused by a lack of exercise or the wrong diet. I can advise all you guys out there what techniques I have discovered that can significantly reduce the effects that cause ailing health. The first thing which I do in the morning is to consume a glass of water with lemon juice. You may ask why? Because lemon juice firstly detoxes your body, stops cell oxidation, stabilizes insulin levels, tricks the liver into producing bile, reduces stomach upsets, and a host of other benefits, including supplying copper, potassium, magnesium, and collagen, which is a large portion of the artery walls. Copper is extremely important because it strengthens the wall of your arteries and veins and makes them more flexible, so when they get a pressure shock, instead of cracking or leaking, they will take the shock and remaining tanked and strong, together with vitamin C, thus reducing the level of stroke risk. If the vein or artery lacks these minerals that include vitamin C and collagen, then trouble can strike. The artery wall cracks and the body tries to fix it by filling the crack with cholesterol. As it builds up, it can develop into a dangerous blob that lets loose and travels to your brain and causes an unwanted blockage. The body lets you know in advance of these blockages by warning you with constant headaches, weakness in an arm or leg, and this could be a sign that an artery wall is beginning to crack. Very important protection for pilots is to consume vitamin C regularly. Also important is to supplement your diet with products such as Ensure or Sustagen, and make sure they include the minerals of copper and selenium. For what I've learned, it only takes a lack of a certain mineral to cause a particular ailment that can cause this or that or the other sometime down the track. Also important is to maintain levels of cholesterol that reduce the effects of fat buildup in the arteries. I do this by using a mixture of your favorite ingredients in a NutriBullet type machine. With oats, oatmeal contains soluble fiber that reduces LDL or bad cholesterol that can increase the risk of heart attacks and relieves the urge to eat for many hours. Last but not least, in the oatmeal mix, I blend dates or milk or soy milk, whatever you prefer, with coffee for alertness and glyconutrients. Last but not least, glyconutrients repair tissue, protect infection, inhibit tumor growth, detoxify the body and strengthen the lungs, and simply makes you feel super. You can find a glyconutrient recipe by typing it into Google search. Also, it regulates cholesterol and provides good nerve conduction. Anyhow, guys, that's it for this feedback. I hope this information, due many years of investigating the best solutions to keep you in top shape throughout your careers and beyond. Cheers to your fantastic APG show. Thank you.
Thank you, Jules, for the great audio feedback. And he sent a nice graphic here, the Aviator Brewing Company. And he did say that beer is good for you. Right?
Mm. Absolutely. It's always good for you.
Drunk enough of it.
If a little bit is good, then more is better. Right?
Exactly.
Even more. Even more is more better.
more is more better. Mo better.
All right. Thank you. Myself.
Jules, go ahead.
I was going to say the Aviator, I was trying to talk and I had muted myself because I was trying to listen intently while he was talking.
Yes.
No, the Aviator Brewing Company is in North Carolina. It's just outside of Raleigh and Fuquay-Varina. They make excellent beers, including an excellent IPA.
So what did you think about his advice regarding minerals?
Wow, there was a lot of information in there, and it was exceptionally detailed. Thank you, Jules. I will start off with this disclaimer that I am not a nutritionist. And, I think basically what all of that boils down to is that this is important for not only pilots, but everyone out there, is that diet and exercise are important. For most people, the best recommendations are everything in some sort of moderation. You would definitely want to stay away from things that are high in saturated fats, refined sugars, all those sugary sodas, plenty of fruits and vegetables, get enough fiber, everything in proportion to some extent, and then in moderation. So it's easy to get really deep into looking at this, talking about like selenium and other minerals and supplements and nutrients, do this, that, and the other, have this, that, and the other benefit. There's a lot of studies out there on all of these things. I think there's a lot of studies out there that can lead you in a lot of different and conflicting directions. And you always need to know who's sponsoring those studies. So is it someone that's manufacturing those particular supplements as well? But for most people, it really does just boil down to everything in moderation. Stay away from the stuff that is going to be bad for you, the fast foods, the sugary sodas, and then plenty of exercise as well. And again, that can be in moderation as well. Some people go out and, especially when they're first starting out.
Not me.
I'm pointing at stuff.
No one here. No, but honestly, I go to the gym twice a week and I run 2 to 3 times a week. So
yeah, 2 to 3 marathons a month.
But it's more important when you're first starting out as well, because a lot of people will get on these kicks where they say, well, I'm going to get healthy now. And they'll go to the gym and they'll do everything all at once. And that leads to injuries and other problems. And that sets you back from where you want to be. So everything
really,
in moderation.
like you're on the treadmill, like lifting weights while you're drinking a protein shake and you got your headband on, right?
Yeah. Or, it's more simple than that. People go, especially to some of these, I go to a lot of like group fitness type classes too. And you'll see people come in, especially the first of the year, and they'll like load up their bar with tons of weights. And you're like, I haven't seen you here in 11 months. Are you sure you want to do that? And a lot of it's just a setup for injury. So.
Yeah. Although I'll tell you, the crowds are starting to thin down a little bit. We're February the 2nd now, and it's a lot easier to get an elliptical machine nowadays.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh. That's odd.
Yeah.
He did also ask about endorphins when exercising. So I'll address that real quick, because he said, please explain, but I'm not sure exactly what he wanted me to explain about. But basically, endorphins are your body's own exogenous opioid type neuropeptides. So basically, when you work out, your body, your brain and your pituitary gland release these hormones, and they basically have a similar effect of they do 2 things. One is that they work like an analgesic, so they do decrease some of your perception of pain. And the other thing is that they act to create kind of a sense of euphoria. So just like an opioid might. So that's why people talk about getting this, runner's high or exercise high, which Captain Jeff claims to have never once had from running or exercising.
Nope.
Really?
But theoretically, that should happen.
Yeah,
so it does. It does. I love it. It's good stuff.
Yes, yeah. And Captain Al says he gets endorphins when he eats. That's true. Some,
we've seen Captain Al eat.
Other pleasurable activities, and I won't go into detail on those activities, but yes.
This is a family show.
Correct. That's right.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I don't either. Really, I don't. Okay. Thank you very much, Jules from Down Under. We do always appreciate your feedback. This is, I think, a new listener, Fabian. He's an aerospace engineering student from Germany and will start his ATPL training in March. In episode 202, you talked about needing to defend yourself in case of a go-around. Especially Rick talked about getting a call from the chief pilot when you fail to stabilize an approach. A friend of mine used to fly the 737NG for a German charter airline near Germania, named Germania. He said if they go around, they do not have to fill out paperwork or get a mad call from the chief pilot as long as they do not produce go-arounds regularly. The airline says it's important that the pilots can fly the lowest pressure level possible. Also, the company does not want them to make the decision to land or go around with a possible call from the chief pilot in mind. He flew for them for the last 4 years. During that time, he had only one go-around where he was just the pilot monitoring. Now he has a job with Sun Express Germany. They operate the A330 long-haul flights for Eurowings. This leads me to episode 191.5, where you talked about type ratings and how long it takes to get it. For him, it took a total of 3 months ground and simulator training to obtain the type rating. I think if you move between aircraft, which do not have any in common, it usually takes around 3 months to get that type rating. Also, in that episode, you talked about the YouTube video with the intersky takeoff with low visibility and about what they did and that they did not operate a sterile cockpit. But as a German native, I can assure you that they talked in German. When they talked in German during the video, they only talked about VFR rules to make sure that they were still under VFR conditions and what route to take to return if they could not go under VFR conditions. So I agree with you. There was nothing inappropriate. Another question regarding the radar out near Bogota. Why do they not use a secondary radar? Every private person can set up an ADS-B receiver. It would at least give them information about some aircraft. Finally, he says, I really like your show. Hope to catch the next episode live. Missed 202, unfortunately, because I had to catch some sleep before my aeromedical exam the next day. Happy landings, Fabian. And I think he sent some audio feedback, but I guess maybe that's somewhere else in a different folder. So thanks, Fabian. I hope that you were able to join us tonight. Is he here in the chat?
He's here. Yep. He's here.
Good.
So he asked several questions or had several comments about a lot of things that we talked about. Anybody want to tackle any of those?
Yeah, I'll tackle the go-around deal. I mean, I just want to, leave it, I guess, make it clear out there that it's not like if you do a go around, every time you do a go around, you're going to get a call from the chief pilot, because at the end of the day, a go around is just one more maneuver. It's just as Captain Nick expertly mentioned one time, you don't land to actually get on the ground and land. As you're coming into land, as you're doing the flare, you're thinking about what is your procedure going to be? What are you going to do in case of a go around? And just the same applies as you begin your takeoff run. You don't begin your takeoff run to take off. You begin a takeoff run to abort that takeoff. And you have to fly with that kind of mindset, because if you expect things to work excellent, perfectly every single time, then there's going to be that one time when you were not ready for it. And so going back to the go around procedure, the go around is just an extra maneuver. It's just one more maneuver. It's just one of two possible outcomes of a approach. What I'm saying here is that if you have to fly a go around because you did not fly your approach procedure the way you should have, if you didn't configure the aircraft in time, if you didn't adhere to stabilized approach concept criteria, and you do that repeatedly, then obviously you're going to get a call from, might be the chief pilot, from the operations office, from somebody, because you're not operating the aircraft in the optimal way. You're not operating the aircraft in the safest and most economical way possible, because a go around costs a lot of money as well. But then again, we were talking about a couple minutes earlier how you never put safety below economics or costs. So as long as you fly your aircraft, and as long as you fly your operation the way it's written down, you give yourself enough time to configure the aircraft and get to that 1,000-foot gate, fully configured, checklists passed, on power, on speed, on glide. There really should be no reason to fly a go around, as it pertains to you as the pilot. Now, there's factors out there, outside factors that you might have to go around for. But as long as you bring your aircraft to where it needs to be in the condition and configuration where it needs to be at 1,000 feet, then there should be no problem whatsoever. You shouldn't get a call whatsoever, because you're not going to be doing go-arounds if you get to fly every approach as a stabilized approach.
Very good. Anything else?
Yeah. Well, just a little perhaps on type ratings. I did the 330 type rating not that long ago. I was converting, of course, from the 340 down to the 330, and it took 2 weeks. So it's considerably quicker when you're already familiar with that family of aircraft. And I believe it could have been a lot quicker, but luckily Acme Red take a responsible attitude to this and try and make sure you dot all the I's and cross all the T's. I have heard that a conversion of the new 350 is just a couple of days of ground school, which seems remarkable, but I'm sure there is probably more to cover if you want to make sure you cover things to the same level. Interesting, that quote about, or that suggestion about using secondary radar near Bogota. My friend Matt, who was on earlier, he's now disappeared. He has one of these ADS-B receivers, and he can get live feedback from every aircraft within about a 200-mile radius of his house. And so you do wonder, and that was just cost him a few £100, why every airport in the world can't afford that. I'm very curious.
That's true. And it's funny because when I fly through that particular piece of airspace, I'm going to do it tomorrow. And coming from the north and going to the south, and then back from the south going back up to the north when I come back to Miami, the 2 points where you're supposed to give them an actual position report, which includes the time at which you passed your last point, the time at which you expect to cross your next point, and the name of the point after that, and your altitude. You do an actual position report, and it's one of the few places where I can think I still do a normal position report, because and that is because exactly what you said. There's no radar coverage there, and the only way they can really figure out where you are is based on those position reports and those times. And based on your filed airspeed on your flight plan there. So that's kind of how they're able to estimate your position. Why don't they have ADS-B down there, even though aircraft nowadays are all equipped with it and they're so accessible? That really beats me. I have no idea.
I don't know. It must have something to do with the regulatory loopholes and hassles of getting everything checked out and such. I don't know. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me either.
Yeah, but it's interesting because once you have, that piece of airspace sits smack dab right in the middle of the ITZ.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's very, very difficult to get a weather deviation because they don't have any radar coverage.
They don't know where you are.
Exactly. So you go and you have this huge CB in front of you, and you need to go around. I'm not going to fly through it. And you ask for a deviation, and they go, enable. And I go, well, I have to. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not flying. I'm unable to fly through it.
Exactly. So it's counterintuitive, really. It's interesting. Oh, you're gonna love South American flying, Captain Jeff. Once you move up to the 75.
Nah, just not going to do that. All right, we'll continue with Pat from Australia during episode 202. You had a guy call up asking if it was the right move to leave the comfort of an established career at 30 years of age and pursue a career in aviation. I have no doubt at all that you've had many, many responses to this. If you could pass just another message on to him. At 32, I wrapped up a 14-year career as a licensed aircraft maintenance engineer, an A&P mechanic in the States, to follow my dream. And I've been very lucky to have been taken on by a regional airline and in-house an in-house cadetship program. To put things into perspective, I don't have a high school certificate. I had to come up with, Australian dollars, 25,000 Australian dollars to start the cadetship. I borrowed an additional Australian 105,000 from the airline to pay for my training. I left a job which provided me with a substantial income, and today am paid almost a third of that. Yesterday, I was the supervisor of a heavy maintenance hangar. Today, I'm at the bottom of the rung. I've had to relearn how to be the new kid who knows nothing again. But with that said, after starting 12 months ago with no flying experience, I have a commercial pilot's license with multiple engine and instrument ratings. I am halfway through the line training on the Saab 340. I have a 7-year employment contract, and if I meet all agreed objectives, I can look forward to captaincy as part of the deal. Was it worth it? Heck yes. Am I worried about my age affecting my future's prospects? With many friends in their 50s transferring to new types and leaving long-standing captain seats to take first officer positions, not at all. It's all part of how it works. Please feel free to pass on my details. I'd be more than happy to discuss finer details and more emotive aspects. It's a big move starting over. Many thanks, Pat. Congratulations, Pat. Wow, it's nice to hear from people like you that have done that mid-career transfer or swap, and it's good to hear from people like you who are pleased with that decision. What do you guys think?
No, I think just going back to what we were talking about earlier too, we had kind of a similar piece of feedback where someone was starting at 27 and this, and Pat is 32 or 30 years old, 32. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, it's good to get these anecdotal stories from you guys and gals who are out there doing it, and just let us know how it goes, because that is one of the most common pieces of feedback we receive. People looking to pursue a career in aviation, but not sure how they're going to do it at their particular life juncture. So great feedback. Yeah. Thanks.
And retirement age of 65 might be bumped up to 67. So, wow, you've got a long way to go and a long, long career to look forward to. So congratulations, man. Great story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Yeah, there are plenty of quotes around the world about the best way to earn money is to not look for a job that pays well, but to find a job you love and then work out a way to make money at it. And that's exactly what being an airline pilot is. You find a job you love, flying airplanes, and then people pay you to do it. That's the way to do it.
Yep. That is so true. And speaking of someone who has done the same thing, let's listen to this audio feedback.
Hey there, Captain Rick, Miami Nick, Captain Steph, and the lovely Dr. Jeff. Something like that, anyway. Here from podcast. Excuse the shameless plug. Anyhow, it's been, a month or so since we all met up in Miami, and I'm just getting over my hangover now, just crawling out of bed for the first time, opening the curtains and wincing at the bright lights. Anyway, I hope you're all well. I just had a quick question for you. Listening back, I can't remember if this is something you mentioned on one of the captain's logs or if it was a couple of episodes ago, but you were talking about what you call initial operating experience, Jeff. But this is a question really for all of you. And as far as I can understand, when you have new pilots coming on to Acme or other US airlines, they have a period of something you're calling initial operating experience, whereby the new pilots gain on-the-job experience, if you want to call it that. And I wondered if you could elaborate a little bit more on that. We have a very similar process here, which we call line training, but I think there's probably a few differences. What we have at SafeJets, and I'm sure most other European outfits, is new pilots come on board and they do a period of line training. But that line training has to be done with what we call a line training captain. You would call them a check airman, I guess, but this is a captain who is specially trained and specially authorized to provide hands-on training to new pilots. So our process at SafeJets is, if we're talking about experienced pilots, they come on board on new aircraft type and they'll fly either 40 sectors or 100 hours of line training with a line training captain. I think it's a little bit more if we're looking at ab initio cadet pilots with no previous experience. I think they have to do a little bit more than that. And within those 40 sectors or 100 hours, there'll be a syllabus that they need to follow. I mean, these will all be normal line flights with passengers, but within those hours and sectors, they'll need to complete a syllabus, which includes things like non-precision approaches, circling approaches, all the different types of approaches. They'll need to tick off at some point, having looked at various environmental operations like winter operations or hot, high humid operations. They'll need to have ticked off pre-flight inspections. Basically, everything that they're going to experience in their day-to-day line flying, they need to be examined on, or at least have that item checked off the syllabus. And only once they've done all of them, hopefully within those 100 hours, they're then ready and presented for a line check, which again will be with a line training captain, and it will be a couple of sectors, and it will be exactly like a regular line check that you and I do once a year. And they'll have to pass that. And only then they're released to fly on the line with regular captains. And I think, if I got my understanding right, is that it's a little bit different with US carriers. I don't know how it works with Rick and his authority, but I get the impression that when guys come and do their initial operating experience, they do it with regular captains like yourself, Jeff. So I don't know, maybe I've got that wrong. Would you mind elaborating a little bit more and telling us what's involved in initial operating experience and how a new guy on that training gets himself signed off and released onto the line? Anyhow, guys, thanks as always for the great show. I'm about to go off for a run, and I'll be listening to episode 203, I think it is, when I go running. I've no idea what episode it is now, probably 210 or something like that by the time you've got to this feedback. Anyhow, keep it up. It's really great listen, as always. Take care. See you all in July, I hope. Bye.
Thank you, Pip, for your great feedback. Plane Safety Podcast, planesafetypodcast.com. I guess maybe I didn't express myself very well when I was talking about line checks. I think I was talking about some of the first officers that I've been flying with in the past few trips having just come off of their initial operating experience, and maybe I made some kind of a comment like, it feels like I'm giving them training, but no, I am not qualified as a line check airman. We have specific people that apply for that job and interview for that job, and then they take it on and they get an override on their pay for extra, because of the extra work and hassle that's involved with flying with people that are brand new on the airplane and giving them their initial operating experience. And it's very much like what you've described. That we have a syllabus that we have to go through, and a checklist and a guide, and one by one checking off all these items. I think I looked before we did the recording. I think the guide is 122 pages long, and throughout the course of, and it's usually a couple of these 3 or 4 day trips where they go through their operating experience, and then at the end of it, they do get a check ride, a line check from the line check pilot. People that are qualified for assessing and evaluating the skills of people that are new to the airplane. So it's pretty much the way that you've described the way they do it at SafeJets. And there are some differences I included in the folder here with some of the a PDF from some of the stuff that we do at Acme. A lot of it depends on, as far as how many hours is required and how many landings and takeoffs and that kind of thing. Really depends on whether the person has had experience on the jet before, or they flew it as a first officer and now they're trying to check out as a captain, or maybe if they were flying a narrow body Airbus and now they're upgrading to the wide body, then there's a lot of similarities there. So it's like a sliding scale as far as exactly what is required as far as actual hours of experience and the number of takeoffs and landings and approaches and that kind of thing. But it's the same. It's pretty much the same thing that you've described.
Yeah, it's the same thing. And I took a little screen grab from my airline's instruction manual, basically, and it's in Spanish. But basically, it details what Captain Jeff just said. I guess all programs are kind of the same. It's kind of broken down between SIC without experience, SIC with experience, and if it's just an upgrade a PIC without experience, with experience, and then whether you fall into one of those categories is really going to determine how many what's the minimum amount of flight hours you need to be able to get qualified on the aircraft. Now we have a 3-phase program where phase 1 is basic stuff, flight planning stuff, dispatch stuff. Phase 2 is your easier type operations like low sea level type airports, airports where mountainous terrain is not an issue. And then phase 3 is the more complicated type stuff. And then between each phase, you're going to have a line check that's going to allow you to progress to the next phase. And then based on whether you are an SIC without experience or an SIC with experience, you're going to have to fly with a safety pilot or without a safety pilot. And then there's another issue that we have to kind of contend with, because for us, a lot of our flight sectors are very, very long flight sectors. So like for us, it's really not only an issue of a minimum of flight hours you need to get checked out. It's also a minimum number of PF sectors and PM sectors. Right, pilot flight and pilot monitoring, or pilot not flying sectors. So, but I mean, another thing is that really anybody or that comes to the 777, nobody has transferred to the 777 with less than 6,000 hours. So it's usually people that are a little bit seasoned. A lot of people that went over to the 777 held command somewhere else, like my case. So like for, I guess, pilots like us, I'm not trying to say that I'm the best pilot out there, but you do have a little bit of experience. You know how heavy aircraft works. You know what the operation's like. And really, this SIC without experience, I guess, section of this table here does not apply, because really nobody goes into the 777 without any experience. But then this same table would apply to, I guess, the 76 or the 320, where you do have guys and gals who are going on with very, very little experience. And so, but as Captain Jeff said, I do believe that all airlines training programs are kind of the same, and you progress through them until you get checked out, just as you mentioned on your piece of feedback bit, which was great, by the way. Thank you.
Nick?
What was the question?
Wake up.
It's late there. You have to give a little bit of a break.
Yes, you're quite right. Whatever it was fine. Actually red, we do have exactly the same system. You fly with line training captains. In fact, there are several grades of trainers, although they all changing now under the European rules. But you used to have line training captains that could do the sort of stuff you're talking about online. And then you had IREs that would do more in detailed stuff in the simulator, that kind of stuff. But nowadays, I think they're all amalgamated and given different names, like horrid people and mean people and very mean people. And we only do line checks every 2 years, so we get it light.
Yeah. And then, of course, some airlines, when they did the simulator ground training and simulator training, it's handled by like a different division, and then other airlines, it's like all the same people. Like Rick, right? For instance, you do the simulator training and the line training as well.
No, I just do simulator. I'm not qualified to do line training, and yeah, so I only do sims, and there are captains out there who only do line training. And there's, pilots out there who do both. But I mean, obviously, if you do both, they're obviously going to be paid a little bit more. But then there's a lot of extra, paperwork, a lot of extra stuff that you have to do, and you still have to do a lot of your line flying, and a lot of these line pilots that are instructors, more often than not, will fly less than your regular line pilot, because most of the time they're instructing. And so that can be a little, I guess, challenging for them. As I said, our sectors are so long that us, like a regular line pilot at my outfit, and I guess any long haul outfit, you're talking about, 3-4 landings a month, if that. whereas somebody that flies short to medium haul, you're talking about doing that in maybe a day or a couple of days. So, and for us, you need to have a certain number of landings in a certain period to maintain your currency. And if you don't, then you'd have to go back to the sim and take care of those there. And nobody wants to do that. So these instructors that do sim and line training and line checks really have to watch their landings on their sectors, because otherwise they could be basically have to go back to the sim and do it there. Nobody wants to do that.
Well, thanks, Pip, for the feedback. And he also sent us another piece of feedback, but it looks like we're running out of time. So we're gonna shelve that for this episode and play it on the next. And we have lots of other great feedback, including Dispatcher Mike, and he sent us several pieces of audio feedback, and many others from the APG community who have written and sent in audio feedback. And we look forward to playing that on the next episode. And it looks like we're going to have to do a feedback extra sometime soon, because we're getting really, really backlogged on the feedback, and we do apologize. Now, if you send us feedback, we're going to do everything we can to address it in one way or another, whether it's on the show or just a personal response. And if we don't get back to you at all, please know that it's probably been covered on previous shows, and we're doing the best we can. And if you want to give your feedback a try, head over to send it to feedback@airlinepilotguide.com. You can use the feedback form on the website, airlinepilotguide.com, and there you'll also find information about the coffee fund and information about the APG crew and information about the mobile apps and all that jazz. So check it out, airlinepilotguide.com. And anything else before we go, ladies and gentlemen?
I don't think so. Thanks, you guys, for joining us tonight, in the especially those of you in the live chat room. Awesome as always.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Just a quickie, Jeff. I'd
Yes,
like to thank Carl and Matt at Plain Talking UK for having me on their show for the weekend. That was great fun, great show. Two lovely guys, and had a great time there. A quick shout out for my father, Andy Anderson, who a few days ago became a fellow of the Royal Aeronautical Society at the age of 92, or might be 93 now. I'm losing count. He claims it's because he's lived longer than any other pilot of his generation, but I don't think that's entirely true. No. And also a big congrats to my lovely niece, Elise Anderson, who is training to become an airline pilot at the University of Western Australia in Perth, and is now a grade 2 flying instructor and well on her way. Congratulations, Elise.
Yeah, cheers all around. Congrats. Awesome.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, there's some cheering in the background. Now let me drown it too. There we go. All right. Congratulations, especially to your father. What an accomplishment! You must be a proud son.
Oh, most certainly. I mean, only topped by the Légion d'honneur that he was awarded 6 months ago. So I think they're finding fewer and fewer of the veterans of the Second World War who are still alive, pilots that is, to give these awards to. So that's his claim to fame anyway. He says, it's not because I was good, it's because I'm old.
No, we have no doubts.
But we know that's not
true. He's excellent.
Exactly right.
Absolutely. And as I said on Twitter, the apple does not fall.
That's true.
So we're not really understanding what that means, but thank you for that.
I like it.
Of course. Hey, so thanks all my fellow crew members for being there and doing the show with me. It's been a fantastic episode once again. As Dr. Steph said, thank you everyone live in the chat room. It really makes our day to see all the engagement in the chat room. And I guess that's it. So let's shut this thing down. Until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care. And God bless.
See y'all next week.
Take care, y'all.
Ta-da. I guess we should play the applause again, right, at the end of the show. Yeah. There we go.
What? I don't hear anything.
Neither do I.
Oh. There we go. Oh, yeah.
There we go.
It gets so complicated.
I think I'm having like sympathy problem for the guy who had the whatever infection in his eye. I think I scratched my eye. Do you see how red it's become?
Oh.
You notice that? Like
sympathy eye infection?
Eye swelling? Yeah. I don't know.
Nasty.
Yeah.
Oh, nasty.
I can't quite tell what's going on, but
I know what it was. You're trying to think of some way to get you out of doing the show. Do some kind of an injury. Maybe if I start bleeding, blood starts coming from my eye. they'll say, "Okay, go, Steph."
Ebola in the eye. Yeah. No, I think I scratched it earlier, and now it's just really irritated and red. Anyway.
Oh, Steffi. Well, it's always a lot of fun. Thanks for staying up so late, Captain Nick.
Oh, no trouble.
When are you out again?
I've got rest of today off, and then
it's Wednesday.
Off to JFK. Exactly right. Tomorrow. Yeah.
Oh, Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Thursday in your time. Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. So you have kind of a 24 hours to recover at least.
Yep, on the VS Trouble One off to JFK. So it's a morning departure out of here. Nice day flight out there. Then I get 24 hours in Manhattan and head home again.
Excellent. Where do you stay in Manhattan?
They're now putting us up in I think it's called the Marriott Courtyard at top end of probably second or third. Just below Central Park, not far from the Apple Store.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
that's nice.
It is a nice area. There's lots of good restaurants around there.
Mm-hmm.
We stay at the Roosevelt near Grand Central.
Yeah, we used to stay there. God, it was full of cockroaches and yeah.
What, Roosevelt?
Yeah, horrid. Oh. Well, those ancient old aircon
that experience
that used to clatter and bash and.
Oh, okay. It must be a different Roosevelt than I stay in. Now, the other one we used to stay, what was it called near on Times Square? Starts with an M. That one, what you just described was pretty accurate.
Really? We've been through a whole bunch down there. The Helmsley, ever stayed there?
No.
I used to stay at the New Yorker. That was
my
bad
God,
too.
yeah, that looked like an absolute classic, the New Yorker. Yeah, I've walked past that many times because it's just down the road from B&H Photo. What a great store that is.
Yeah, that's a great place to visit. Yeah, it's a great town. Great place to visit.
Oh, yeah. Beats being out in Uniondale, which is where I commonly stay, which is right near the Cradle of Aviation Museum. Not bad, and not far from Track-On. You can go and throw
I've been there,
air traffic controllers as they come off duty. No, it's other than that, it's a dreadful place.
There is a really good barbecue place around the Cradle of Aviation Museum. I forget what it's called. And actually, I used to have a frequent visitors card.
And I see
I used to go there all the time.
Buy 10 meals, get your
go in there. Yeah, it was. I'm not kidding. It was something like that. Like I forget what it was. Like you'd get like a half rack. Yeah. Ribs free after I forget how many, but it was so good. Ribs
Captain Al says he has one from McDonald's, and none of us are surprised.
How many was it? 25?
25 Big Macs.
Impressive.
Yeah.
All right.
Very good.
Well, we're going to go ahead and shut it down. Thank you again, everyone, for being with us, and we look forward to being with you again on the next episode, 205, next week.
Yes, we do.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye everyone.
Bye, everybody.